All right, we are live. And today we have something a little different planned. Usually we'd be doing coaching, but today we're going to be reviewing some OWL VODs. Taking a look at Excelsior versus Spark. I thought this would be an interesting match to look at. One, because I have not been paying attention to the APAC games, so I'm actually going to be watching these games. Oh, and I'm listening to myself on YouTube. Nice, okay. And so yeah, I haven't been paying attention to the APAC VODs myself. So I want to take a look at what they're running over in that region. I know they've been playing slightly different stuff than the NA meta, and to be honest, the NA meta isn't very fun to analyze right now. It's a lot of individual playmaking without a lot of high-level macro decisions being evident, at least from what I've seen. Maybe that'll change come the tournament starting tonight. But yeah, I want to take a look at this upset. Excelsior right now was sitting at fourth, I believe, fourth seed going into these qualifiers, and Spark, I believe, was the number one seed. So this was a huge upset from New York. They've been sort of middling this season. In the past, they've been a bit of a powerhouse team, but not so much this season, struggling to find their footing a little bit. But this was a very decisive win over Spark. A bit of a spoiler alert, the series ended 3-1 in favor of New York. So yeah, we're going to jump in and take a look to see how they did it. So starting with Oasis.
Ready for battle.
Make sure all my controls are good. I think my audio's a little high. All right, so
Ready. 5.
I can pause. Okay.
4, 3, 2, 1. Round 1.
So already seeing like a pretty distinct composition difference. So before we even get into this first fight, so looking at the comps, New York opting for Orisa, but other than Orisa, so just kind of like running simulations in my head right now. So they got Pre-Reaper versus Echo Reaper, and Orisa Diva versus Winston Zarya. Winston Zarya is interesting to me. So NA right now is running a lot of these heroes, but then with Diva, Lucio, Moira, right? For that like all-in rush, huge burst potential, huge, easy to close the distance, stuff like this. This from Spark looks more like a double bubble composition based on these three heroes, which is a composition that's still good at engaging. Very strong cooldown usage from both Winston and Zarya, and then obviously huge ultimate stacking potential between Nano, Grav, Primal. And I mean, Echo fits into double failure well, but the Reaper is the awkward part for me. So the reason I say it's awkward is because double bubble is a composition. So looking at like Spark's current position, like going into this first fight, double bubble is a composition that's like has guaranteed initial value from the initial dive and the bubble, but it's not enough value to like find you an advantage in a team fight. It's enough to start ramping up throughout a team fight and start solidifying your footing. So like you'll jump in, get this bubble off to hold an enemy team here while someone like an Ashe takes position over here, or while a Tracer's setting up an enemy backline, or sometimes when an Echo overlaps cooldowns and looks for sticky bombs during this moment, or finds a backline assassination during this sort of window of opportunity. In this current meta, we have both Tracer and Sombra banned, which means it's very awkward for a DPS like Reaper to try and follow these things up. In the all-out brawl composition we're seeing in North America with the Lucio Moira, it's a lot easier for Reaper because there's just so much more chaos going on. It's easier for Reaper to even just like get a teleport off, close the distance, and just like be ignored because there's 5 other members also in the enemy's face. In this kind of composition, it's really just Winston. You can almost think of Winston in this composition almost like a Doomfist, where like Doomfist is like very threatening when he's doing his rollout, but then once all those cooldowns are down and then he has to like back up, then you don't have to worry about Doomfist for the next 5 seconds. You can kind of think of Winston in a similar vein. As long as they can deal with the initial dive, it's going to be very hard for Architect and Shy to follow up that type of burst engage. So what I'm curious is, and looking at the composition matchup, also looking at New York's comp, much slower, obviously, with Orisa, no gap closing ability, much more stable. The Diva is here probably not to go aggressive, but to solidify ground for Flora and Feather. I doubt Feather's going to be going for similar aggressive plays that Architect might be trying, because they're more dependent on Orisa's position. They don't have that gap closing potential. Maybe Feather can capitalize on the fact that if Gushui, Burner, Shy like all use their cooldowns to go aggressive, then maybe Feather gets an unsuspecting flank off or something like that. But just like on paper right now, looking at these two comps, I would give the edge to New York just because. I mean, unless Spark just solely relies on ultimate value, which is a valid way to play Double Bubble, to be honest, New York should be able to just straight up poke them out before Gushui can come online, before Burner can get high charge even, before Shy and Architect have space to really do anything, because they're not going to get anything done outside of Winston's cooldowns, outside of Winston and Zarya's cooldowns. Meanwhile, Flora is going to be shooting constantly. Yakpong is going to be throwing up shields on probably like fairly hit rotation heavy, like on cooldown. Jonex offering a lot of stability so that even when they do get dove, they can guarantee survivability off a single dive from with his lamp, even through something like Nano or Primal or potentially even Grav. So it's really just up to New York to poke them down and find enough value to solidify more and more space. So like poke Winston out, force his bubble, force him to jump away, walk up off of that, solidify Flora's position, stuff like that. Almost like what you would do with like a Hitsuke member in the classic Double Bubble, which is funny enough. But yeah, let's see how Spark tries to take advantage of this. I want to mainly pay attention to Spark's point of view looking at this, because I want to see how they're actually finding space and what Architect's going to be doing during this time. So like in a fight like this is like what we call neutral, where both teams are like really hesitant to cross over like no man's land. No one's using big aggressive cooldowns, no one's jumping in. They're waiting for the right moment. They're waiting to either get poke damages, something like Shy's sticky bombs, Flora's landing some good shots, maybe Burner getting high energy just in neutral. But that can be a bit too much of a commitment, or, I mean, it doesn't really happen in pro play, but in ranked you might see like an anti-nade come through that enables a dive. So, again, the neutral fight is hugely favored for New York. As long as Yakpong is like alive, it seems very, very hard for Spark to exist in their LOS. Bianca also contesting a ton of space. Like, you see how, like, Bianca's, like, over here, like, isolated, but all of this space that New York is taking complements Bianca's position, which makes it so hard to cross either of these choke points. One, they can't cross here because of all the sightlines from Flora and Yakbung. That's just too much damage. They can't deal with that. But even just Bianca holding this one choke right here is supplemented by, like, if they push Bianca, there's an Orisa pull. There's McCree shots. There's Baptiste healing. It's very easy to supplement this space based on all the position they have on point, which makes it very hard for Spark to get in without hard committing. Okay. Winston jump used to just take this mini pack room. I don't like how Yakpong just sort of gave up this space. So, like, we saw, if we think of these teams as like oil and water, we saw all of this space in favor of New York, and then the monkey jumped over here, and then all of a sudden, we're all the way back here. We've given up the point entirely. We've given up any opportunity to try and punish Shy right now, who's completely isolated. And we're respecting a Winston jump that really didn't do anything for no reason, which is a little awkward. And again, like, Spark is not in a good position to try and capitalize on anything. Bianca tries to boop someone out of position. Yakpong is now finding himself a little bit isolated. But he is Orisa, and Orisa never dies. This is not how I expected this fight to go, but it is working out in New York's favor. So going back just a little bit. So again, like, Spark is just stuck in here. Architect goes for a teleport. Where did he TP to? Okay. So they're reacting. So initially they reacted to the Winston jump and they backed up. Now they're reacting to the Reaper TP and they're going aggressive. So it doesn't even matter, like, that this isn't ideal space for someone like a McCree or even an Orisa. Like, you don't want to be walking into 6-man Winston cleave. You don't want to be walking into easy poke damage from Shy. But Architect's just completely out of this fight. So Feather is free firing onto Gushui or onto IDK at that moment, and then they're just walking forward because it was such a short moment where Architect was out of the fight, but they capitalized really well on it. Feather overextends a little bit and gets shot down by MCD. And yeah, as long as Flora is stable during these fights, it's so threatening to just be anywhere on the map for Spark. They really need to dislodge him. And I really wish I'd see them moving up more aggressively, because I get you want to play safe with these members. You don't want to be dove on and stuff like that, but you're not going to the important part is not just surviving the dive, but pressuring the dive before it comes out. So they need to be like positioned up like here so they can poke Winston, they can poke Zarya, they can force these cooldowns as much as possible, or at the very least force them to jump with like half HP. So like even if Winston's going to be jumping your backline, if he's jumping in with half HP, that opportunity window is just that much shorter. But instead of playing this passively, is sort of letting Shy, who is on the Echo. Again, Tracer is banned. It's very hard to control the map without a hero like Tracer, but Shy is completely controlling this angle. And like without even like a pocket, with basically only Brig healing, because Ana's going to be focused on the tanks more often than not, and just getting Brig packs every now and then. Like Shy's completely uncontested, and if we had more space like up here, we'd be able to control this space with Bianca, maybe even take some shots as Flora to just completely deny this angle. And again, we'd be getting more pressure on Spark's front line here. But I do understand at least the cooldowns were coming out, or sorry, no, the respawns were coming out. This was a bit of a misuse of cooldowns from Jonak, which you don't get to say very often. So this dive was already like basically completely denied. And we know Spark's committing to this because they've used Nano. They're going to try and combo Nano probably into Duplicate. At that time, Gushue is probably going to come online with Primal. Maybe by the time Primal's over, we have something like a Death Blossom or a Graviton, or maybe even like a Rally to continue aggression. This is what makes the classic double bubble composition so strong, because of the way these three heroes can interact with each other and the way their ultimates interact with each other to build and maintain pressure. But this initial burst was like completely denied. They mistimed the bubble, so it didn't eat the flail from IDK, or sorry, from Friday. So this dive, at least the most important part of this dive, is already completely denied. I don't hate this Amp Matrix, but I think this Immortality field was completely unwarranted. I think it must have been because Yakpon got anti-nated, but you can see like he's in no threat of dying. They also move forward really quickly. So another thing to keep in mind in this matchup is the longer a fight goes, the same reason like neutral favors Excelsior, is also the reason why the longer a fight goes, the better it will be for them over time. The more shots Flora takes, the more space and more shields Yakpon gets out, the more healing Jonak does, and of course damage Jonak does, and these kind of things will value them more over time. And Spark really need to find value with each one of their cooldowns. They need to leapfrog more and more and more. So right now, this is like the tail end of their engage timing, and they're actually maintaining aggression by using Duplicate to keep back up. So I don't like how eager New York was to touch the point here. They end up sacrificing a lot of HP on Bianca and Yakpong. Bianca actually loses mech and goes down to the bomb. I really think a lot of this, though, was just starting with too passive of a position, and it might have been because of the respawns coming through, but I think that was a low priority fight from them. They could have been further up in that fight, started with more resources, had more space to kite through, and then done a better job of being more patient before trying to turn it. It's not as simple as it's Spark's turn, then it's New York's turn. It's Spark's turn, then they use an ultimate, and it's still their turn. Then they use another ultimate, then it's still their turn. And as long as New York survives all of that, then they have overwhelming amounts of pressure to push back once it's all been spent. Touching the point at that point doesn't matter at all. Alright, the hard part about New York's comp now is retaking with this composition, especially versus a comp like this, is such a chore. Because you almost have to work in a similar way, but you're not working to use your cooldowns aggressively. You're working to force enemy cooldowns. So what New York should be trying to do is find angles on someone like Gushue, because there's not a chance Excelsior pressures anyone like Architect, like Sky, like any of the backline members, as long as they're playing well, unless like Shy like flies above them and gets headshot by McCree. Like there's no reason any of these members from Spark will be punishable, so they need to focus their efforts on Gushue, and they need to very slowly work for that space around typically Orisa's cooldowns. This flank is a little bit risky, but I also understand it as long as they're timing it properly. If they get like a pull into Gushue or even Architect right now and they force Wraith, that's a reason to move a little bit further up. But again, they want to aim for these like longer types of engages where they can cause more and more damage just over a longer period of time. They have to know that Primal is coming. They shouldn't even be this far up without forcing Gushue out. Okay, Yakbang does a pretty nice split there to get the double angle. Like, people often forget how much damage Orisa does, but like if you're the Winston right now, if you're Gushue, you're thinking to yourself, oh, I've got Primal, I can disrupt them if they try to engage on me. He knows he's playing this aggressively because he knows if they try to push him, he can Primal them, boop them into his team, and tear them apart. Excelsior, although this was a little bit of a risk from Flora, he could have been isolated out. They counter this by just walking forward as Yakpong. Right now, the only person that can hit Yakpong from this position was basically Gushue, meaning if Gushue goes aggressive here, he's just getting shot 24/7, and the rest of his team is still safe. They don't need Orisa to counter that kind of dive. They have Brig, they have Flashbang, they have Baptiste, all these kind of things. So they work that really slowly, and they split Yakpong off to create a bit of a double angle, which is nice. But again, I think they're a little bit... Okay, they're respecting the dive. They're backing up now. Another Bap Matrix coming in from Jonak. Yeah, like, all they have to do is play slow and survive, and they win over time. That's how this matchup works. I don't know why they went in that room. Looking back, so this is an easy thing to see from top down, but you could see where New York's team priority position was. It was around here, and then by opting to try and collapse in here, even though they are at such a high advantage, even though they got these 2 kills and they're using ultimates and these kind of things, they have a high noon that's about to proc. This is still an aggressive play, and similar to when we were trying to break through this choke as New York, you need resources and you need coordination and you need to respect enemy cooldowns as well when going for aggressive plays like this. We need to know they have Grav, they have Blossom, they have Rally, they have Nano, these kind of things. So opting to push aggressively here instead of, again, just playing slowly to close things out over time. At this point, you could even leverage the point in your favor. You could leave Yakpong on point and have everyone else like play either cutting towards this side, or if you're trying to poke people out from here, sure, go for that, but don't commit inside. I think they felt like, hey, we're at advantage, we need to close this out quickly. They deal with Architect, and then, again, like, they have so much priority here, but by going through these chokes, even just the slightest overextension gives room for Bernard to come online. And if we go to his POV, they've already used everything getting to this space that they don't have any more tools to try and commit to these kills. Architect gets a lucky trade over Feather. Obviously, he shouldn't have won that duel based on the amount of people around. And Bernard is just beaming people down. Oh, but the High Noon cleans him up. Again, it's just these trades were just so unnecessary. If they just played slower, they would have kept the point, number one, and I don't think they lose Architect ever. Or sorry, I don't think they lose Feather ever to Architect. And they really just maintain numbers advantage over time. And sure, if Spark want to recommit with ultimates, let them do it. That's less resources they have to retake, which is, again, the harder part of these kind of maps. And like, why are we trying to pressure out Reaper? Why are we committing our position, our cooldowns? I'm assuming Yakpong used pull. Yeah, his pull's on cooldown, his shield's on cooldown. Why are we committing all of this to try and counter a Reaper position? And we're just letting Winston into the map and letting him isolate our tanks with a bubble here. He gets a really lucky timing and burst damage to, as we see, Jonak's Immortality Field is just a hair too late. But there's no reason to try and force out this Reaper when you know he has Wraith. Like, you're just not going to get that kill. And you don't play this composition to get kills. You play it to maintain pressure. And then once you find an advantage, then you can try and commit to kills. Once you force bubbles, jumps, Winston shields, once you force Wraith, once you force all these cooldowns, then sure, you can commit to kills. But we're in neutral right now. You are not in the middle of a team fight where you need to get this kill. It's like it's do or die or something. Like, why would you commit pull to that? There's a Brig shield, there's a Zarya, and we've just let Winston into the map. It wasn't Reaper, I'm sorry. It was Echo, Brig, Zarya that they were committing to. I just assumed it was Reaper. But like, I don't understand why they commit so heavily to this in space that doesn't favor them. This composition, like, obviously, like, can control more space in this composition. They can stand in the open more, they can control more angles, they can control longer ranges, and they're committing themselves to this little cubby. It just doesn't make sense to me. And then Jonak just completely whiffs his Hep Matrix. That's really unfortunate. That's a great tool to retake in fights like this. Obviously, it's last fight, so they were trying to win that no matter what. I guess they felt they had an advantage. They felt the pressure on. They tried to go fast, that sort of thing. and they're not going to be able to touch. Biggest thing I'm seeing from New York right now is just impatience. I think overall they have the comp advantage.
0 to 1.
Yeah, I would say they have the comp advantage in most situations. Outside of like pure ultimates, like if both teams have 6 ultimates, I give the advantage to Spark. But if you can create enough pressure during those ultimate downtimes from Spark, then you should be able to create enough space, create enough pressure over the map to just completely deny what they're trying to do.
Ready for battle. 5,
Would have liked to see more patience, more playing around Flora, less playing around,
1.
I mean, even like Yakpung's aggression. He needs to be thinking more about the slower win condition. Alright, so we're swapping onto the Reaper here, keeping the Orisa, and Spark's keeping everything the same. So I'm guessing the Reaper here is... So McCree was better on the previous map because there's easy access to short flanks with easy sight lines. If you're playing McCree in a situation like this, you're rolling out, and you're sitting here as McCree, one, you're never going to get through this space if Spark doesn't want you to. If they end up diving here, this is like where you don't want to be caught. So you'd like to be able to try and swing around wide. It's hard to get access to the high ground. It's hard to get access to enemy backline. And then any other more beneficial angles just completely isolate you from the rest of the team. And there's not enough space to kite back. I don't think it's impossible to play McCree here or anything, but I think it's a lot harder. And I'm guessing that's why they're opting more for a Reaper, because TP plays here are a lot easier, just TPing across the map. It's easier to get a flank through this way, unsuspecting, because there's so much natural cover. Even TPing up to the high ground or up to this window can sometimes find value, these kind of things. And yeah, that's why I'm guessing we're seeing the Reaper, unless it's just they really wanted Echo, and only Feather plays Echo, and they know they need a Reaper because that's the amount of damage the game requires right now. So they opt for Echo Reaper. I don't think they would play Echo McCree because it's just not enough. It's not enough tank pressure, most likely, without the Reaper. But hard to say. I'm not working for these teams. I'm not in their heads. But what that means for New York is that their neutral game's slightly weaker, but they still need to play a more reactive style. They still need to try and punish Guxue's cooldowns. It's just going to be harder to push him out in neutral without that McCree damage. But they still have stuff like Jonak. They still have Yakpung's damage. They still have shields to solidify space. All these kind of things. It's really interesting to me, too, that neither team is playing Lucio. Not saying like neither team really needs a Lucio, but that is what we're seeing a lot in NA. And even if I was on Spark right now, I would say like you don't even need Brig if this is what we're seeing New York roll out with. Obviously they can't know this before match day, so maybe they're just rolling out what they practice. But you could run Lucio Ana here and like not be threatened by New York. Ana is rarely going to be the target, and it's just inaccessible except for someone like Reaper or maybe Feather with a flank play. Lucio, what would help do is help close the distance without committing too many cooldowns, without needing to jump every time. You'd be able to speed into position and then jump deeper than you normally would, these kind of things, as well as offer just nearly as much peeling. I mean, at this rate, it's equivalent amounts of peeling. If you can boop Reaper, you can, with Brig Bash or with Brig Flail, you can boop them with Lucio boop, these kind of things. There's no tracers to deal with. There's no Hammond in this compositions that need to be dealt with. IDK overstepping a little bit, losing the tempo of his team in this first fight. Again, unless they find value from this initial Winston jump and bubble, they cannot stay here. And this is literally just a difference between Winston versus Orisa. If you don't get value from your jump, and then Orisa's walking up with a fresh shield and gold, even without like a ton of follow-up damage, it just becomes just very hard space to hold. IDK, it looks like he just got... Did he just not get pulled back what the rest of his team did or something? Why was he so far ahead? Yeah, it was just... It was late to the call, I guess. And then Winston jump really late. How does Feather die to MCD during that? So really good timing, first of all, from Feather. We saw the tempo going back and forth. Winston jumped. They got pushed back. IDK was slow to react to the pushback. Now as we're pushing back fully, Feather's committing cooldowns. We're taking more space like this. Oh, MCD just lands 3 shots in a row, and there's no packs from Friday. In a situation like this, you almost like pre-pack your Echo. Your packs on your tanks are going to be not what's important. Your packs on your Reaper and your Echo are going to be the most important. If you know your Echo's committing, you throw a pack on her. Hard call to make, obviously, and we're already out of packs. Do we just not have one for Echo? Yeah, I don't agree with these packs at all. You never pack your tanks in a situation like this. Like, at best, like, worst case scenario for not packing your tanks here, like, sure, they might die, but that's on your tanks more than anyone right now. If they're committing in space that they're taking too much damage and dying when they're Orisa and D.Va in this kind of angle, it's on them. Like, even Jonak forcing Immortality Matrix here, I feel like is unnecessary. All they had to do was back up, and realistically, like, Bianca shouldn't be in kill threat right now. And Yakbang, like, clearly is not. This, if anything, should be a win condition for New York, building Amp Matrix faster. No reason to throw packs out this early and not have one available for your Echo. We see the Echo here. We're not even thinking about her. We throw it on the Reaper. So we're putting a lot of heavy priority on Reaper when, again, like, does Reaper really need it when he's sitting behind Orisa shield? If Reaper's the one making an aggressive TP play, absolutely. Triple pack that Reaper. Why not? Make it so that if he wraiths, he's just got infinite healing going forever. But Reaper's basically a tank at this point. It's Echo is the one who's making the most aggressive play, taking the most aggressive angle, and that's where Friday's priority should have been. But overall, it looks like, yeah, the longer these fights go, the better it is for New York. Unless they, like, completely split up and kill themselves, this should be fine. What's awkward without having the McCree compared to last comp is, like, where do you go as Flora? If you go too aggressively, you just get, like, jumped on, you force Wraith, or you don't even get jumped on, you just get, like, poked out because Yakpung's not there to capitalize as someone like a Winston. And there's just no follow-up to Reaper opening up a fight. You almost need Spark to open up the fight poorly in order to take advantage in a fight, and it's much harder to find the neutral advantage here. Even still, I don't know why we're sitting here and not, like, even just, like, at this corner and just putting a shield here rather than on point right now. It seems very passive. And I get, like I said, I even just said it myself, like, you want to play passive, you want to let them in, but that doesn't mean you give up neutral threat. I like this position from Flora because if anyone tries to split off, i.e. Architect, or even, like, Shy trying to take an angle this way, like, this is something Flora can punish. It feels weird to say Reaper can punish Echo, but unless they're flying, like, in the skybox right here, this is actually a decent map for it. And typically Echoes don't play like Pharah in these kind of metas. They play a lot slower and a lot more deliberate with their shift usage. Flora getting a huge flank off, so this is also a benefit to this positioning. It's more flexible to find this kind of aggression. Again, they're playing so slowly, and what I'm worried is playing any static comp versus any sort of dive comp. And again, like, the only difference is the main tank, basically, in these compositions. But this is now a much more static composition. This is much more a dive heavy composition. If you play too slowly, eventually Spark's win condition will come online. Whether that's ultimates, whether that's good dive potential, whether that's Zarya charge, whether that's Architect's position. It's gonna be harder to find without something like a Tracer, obviously. But it's going to happen if you just wait. And what I'm worried about right now is look how split our backline is from the threat angle of Spark right now. Spark rotated here and is threatening this kind of space. And right now there's nothing between Spark and New York's backline. If we were going to make this rotation, I'd almost rather see Jonak rotate here and use this angle, because sure, it takes you further out of the fight if you get dove, but it's safer and it creates a better double angle for Yakpung and eventually Flora once he comes into the fight. But we do use Amp Matrix. But yeah, there goes Friday. And because, like, he's Orisa. You just can't do anything against that. You can't gallop over here and expect to find value after, like, the dive's been online for 2 seconds. It's just too slow. And then Shy cleans up the kill. I saw Feather on the coast over here trying to poke them down. So again, like, Feather is probably their best source of neutral threat, of poke damage and threat on Gooseberry and stuff like that. So he was trying. He's doing his best, but again, like without a hard pocket, like a Mercy, you can't commit to that space. Even using shift in a space like this can be risky, because then what's stopping Shy from just getting triple packed and taking the duel kind of thing. Even Spark with like gap closing cooldowns, like you see like they're pressuring more space than Yakpung was just sitting on point. It's not a big difference, but you can see like they're even valuing natural cover more. They're valuing further position. Even just little things like that can make a difference in these types of team fights. What does Brig do in this Orisa comp? Is it just for the stun? One, it's for stability. So yes, it helps boop away Gushue. It helps stun Architect, these kind of things. But primarily also, it's the best healing source for someone like Feather. If you commit to something like a Mercy or Zenyatta, they're much more squishy, and they're easier to engage on. And then you lose the defensive potential of being able to disrupt Architect, disrupt Gushue's jumps, these kind of things. Rarely will Brig Bash find high value, but the threat of big Brig Bash in these comps to cancel Architect's Death Blossom, to stop a copy from getting something off or something like that, to stop Gushue from booping someone off the map during Primal. That's the value of Brig, more so than even Lucio. But, yeah. Also, a big thing to remember is the pack potential, because unless you're playing something like a hard pocket Echo, Brig is actually the best healer for a lot of flankers.
Adaptive circuits engaged.
I'm worried, again, Excelsior's going too fast. Yakpunk just ran it down. Look at this guy go. So he's used his first shield. He's used his gold. They're playing this like a slow motion. They're playing NA meta right now at 0.5 speed. They're just running around trying to cause chaos, but they don't have the reach. They're playing Orisa. They don't have the reach to dive and threaten backline. So look how free MCD is during this whole fight. And there's nothing that anyone can ever do. Yakpunk gets grabbed. Yeah, Gushue. I mean, they used a lot of ultimates. I guess both sides did, so it's warranted. But like, how can you expect to go? Oh, even the Death Blossom to close things out. I feel like, I'm not sure what scrims have been like in this meta, but I feel like there's a lot of fights that like look that they're really one-sided, and then all of a sudden it just turns back around. So that's probably why we see Architect so willing to commit Death Blossom there, because again, it's not the biggest playmaking ultimate, but it is good for closing out fights in a situation like this. But we saw like, again, how are you expecting to go from point A to point B and just like hope your team does the best? We're not doing anything to pressure MCD. We're not doing anything to pressure Shy. He was just flying around. And we're thinking solely about our aggressive move as the slower composition. It's mind-boggling. That was just textbook impatience. Like if they had been willing to like go in and back out, like after, and especially with something like Bongo, which again finds more value over time. Like you don't need to find huge burst value. You need to like slowly pressure them off the point, make them uncomfortable, keep the pressure up over time. With this type of composition, at least in my eyes. Maybe they've been doing something completely different. Maybe they're playing it like a rush comp in scrims. But again, if you're doing that, where's the Lucio?
Adaptive circuits engaged with Diva.
Copy and Baptiste Matrix committed. This is a much better position to be in if you're Excelsior. I don't like kiting towards this direction. Would have rather seen kiting towards main, because one, obviously this, but that's hindsight. They can't know that in the moment. But one, it gives them more space to kite to, and two, it lets them better use their amp matrix if they find a way back in. And three, it cuts off these sightlines from Ana better. If you're committing here, you're still committing to this forward fight. They're thinking too far ahead on themselves. They're thinking, okay, we need to keep up pressure so that we can eventually bring this to point, instead of thinking just what's in front of them. They're being dove, they're committing nano, they're committing copy. Number one priority is surviving this. And honestly, maybe that's too passive of me thinking that. Maybe they've found if they commit that way, they just never find a way back in. It's hard to say without seeing their scrims or anything like that. But like, I don't see why Yakpunk needs to die there. I don't see why we need to commit to this space. Sure, the point was, what, like almost 90%, but As long as Bianca's in mech, that's always almost a guaranteed touch. Yeah, just overeager. Like 3 fights in a row. So that's Koth. That's the one map that Hangzhou takes over New York. And I think a lot of the symptoms of what I'm saying are in part due to the map type of King of the Hill, which is inherently harder to hold and create space on because of the symmetry and because there's no like it's hard for attackers or retakers on a Koth map to leverage the objective because it's always going to be defender favored. Almost always. At the very least, you're always forced to like cross distance to touch the point, or you're forced to walk through the enemy team to touch the point, or things like this. And the longer you take, again, this is what this composition favors. They want to take longer fights. The more it benefits the defenders because it's objective taking in their favor. I think this is something this is like super tangential, but I think this is what's going to make push so interesting, is because defenders, it's going to be an inherent retake advantage to push because it's the defenders moving the payload in both directions that switches up the game mode. In a map like Escort, it's retake favored generally for like the defenders, but that's the whole map. It doesn't flip back and forth. And as every time attackers win a fight, they need to prioritize taking position and stuff like that in order to snowball, take more space, keep up pressure and these kind of things. But defenders, all they have to do, as long as the point's not about to cap, can just like wait them out in a lot of instances. But yeah, I'm getting super off topic right now. Looking at 2CP. So we're seeing the exact same comps. Wait, no, we're seeing Bianca on Zarya on attack. So they know. So one, I don't think this is good. Or if they want to play this, I would love to see like Doom Echo. I don't know if Flora or Feather play much Doomfist, but that would be sick. I think I understand why they're playing this. It feels like they play Diva, but again, like if they're playing Zarya, why not play Lucio? So it feels like they're playing Zarya here because they want to be more offensive, and they know that Spark isn't going to be willing to over-aggress into them. Although there's not much space that's guaranteed, they can at least guarantee something like this, or something like this, or potentially something like this, just with shield rotations. It's going to be slightly harder without Matrix and with only Zarya bubbles and stuff like that, but Zarya is going to be more punishing, and again, better over time than someone like Diva, to people like the DPS, and potentially to Guxue as well. I think it feels really weird, because what you're losing by picking Zarya here is that stability, and you don't have many engage tools with here. But if you had like a Doomfist, for example, you could like pocket your engage tool while Yakpung sets up. You almost think of Doomfist as the main tank and Yakpung as like the hit scan DPS in a double bubble composition, where like you're going in with Doom engage and they're using that engage to set up your Orisa, something like here, or that's pretty terrible position. But you're using a Doom engage here, at the same time your team's rotating here. And then you're setting that up by forcing attention onto the Doomfist, setting space for Yakpung and Jonak and Friday and all these people walking forward. That would be a cool comp in my eyes. But this feels very forced. I'm curious to see what they're actually going to do with their ally bubble, if they're going to use it defensively or try to find space with it. Ugh. But yeah, very interesting. Let's see. Again, yeah, this is good. This is exactly what they need to do. This is what they should have been doing on Oasis University more. See Guxue, shoot Guxue. No one else is a kill target. There's just 0% chance you kill anyone else unless Jonak hits 9 headshots against Shy or something stupid. They bubble Flora to try and bully out Winston. So I guess that's a bit... So what this is doing is this is forcing Guxue to not play passively forward. Normally, when you're playing double bubble defense, you play as forward as you can as Winston. You throw down your self bubble to get some zaps, or you get bubbled by Zarya to get some zaps. You throw down your self bubble if you absolutely need it, and then you jump away, get some healing from your Ana, go back in, do the same thing. And you do this every time the enemy team is rotating through a choke, so that you get maximum cleave. And you're very willing to give up this space, but not without taking something from them, and usually in the form of Zarya charge and ult charge for your Winston and your Ana. So this is good defensive posturing from Spark, and this is sort of the understood way of how to play these two tanks together on defense. So what Excelsior is doing is they're saying, hey, we're not going to let you stand anywhere near us without us threatening to kill you, even with Zarya Bubble. And the way we're going to do that is not with like a hard engage Reaper, but by bubbling Reaper to just walk at the Winston. And I kind of like that. If they get like super lucky and like Bernard mistimes his bubble, or an Orisa pulls Gushue back into position and messes up his jump, and I'm curious to see if they actually try to go for that, they could just outright kill Gushue and then just walk it, run it down. So yeah, and then, of course, if Gushue doesn't walk forward, they know he's forced to commit jump to try and get forward, or he's forced to take much more passive position. Like we're saying, he's forced back here instead of being up here or up here, where he would normally be. So they can take bit by bit more space and continue the same sort of plays. And then if Gushue ever does commit his jump, then they just kite back, put Yakpung in front of the team so that he's the only one that the rest of the team can shoot at, and they burn down Gushue knowing he has no more jump. And I'm sure Gushue will never do that without Primal or Nano online because he doesn't want to die. So I think this is like a good slow play from New York. I think this is smart. So at this time, they opt to play a different strategy a little bit. They opt to go for a Reaper TP. And it's bubbled by Bianca. Bubbles a bit early. And he's wraithing away really early. So it, like, obviously, like I said, like a Doomfist engage with Bubble would look so cool right now. But what's good about bubbling Reaper in like this is like he's guaranteed to get out every time with Wraith. And because we're no longer back here, we're now set up here with Yakpung's position. He's guaranteed to get back into the space. So again, if they can't force Gushue to walk up and they can't poke him down, they can force some amount of movement, some damage, some step-by-step incremental pressure by going for this TP plays. I think it definitely could have been better executed. I don't know if you even had like a clear target in mind. I would have liked to see him try to pressure Gushue even more actually, instead of TPing on MCD here. But on the flip side, you can think this is like technically also harming Gushue because you're denying a lot of healing value right now, a lot of bubble value right now, and this is like, if this is what they're planning, this is like super big brain stuff. It just wasn't executed very properly. Because like what they're doing is they're using Reaper TP as an engage tool to force all this attention, but their real focus is Gushue during this time. Flora isn't trying to kill anyone. He knows he's not going to kill anyone unless he gets extremely lucky and lands the perfect like 2 headshots on MCD before he can react with nade, and while the Zarya bubble's still on him. That's like miracle solution. The real play here is we're willing to sacrifice bubble, Reaper Wraith, Reaper positioning to force Gushue out. That's what I'm seeing in my eyes. Because what's happening right now is everyone else is on Gushue. Even Echo is on Gushue. And without the healing, he knows he can't maintain this position. And we see, like, where's MCD? MCD's still not back in his original position, even though there wasn't a real threat from Flora. But people even in the Overwatch League, people are so accustomed to just seeing Reaper and be like, I'm going to die if I don't respect this hero. So MCD hightails it away, forcing Gushue to jump back, and actually Feather gets the kill because the healing was just a tiny bit too slow from MCD. I think this is a really smart play. I think they need to clean things up a lot, though, because if people analyze this and they just start ignoring the Reaper, or they go up against NA and Reaper TPing pressure is absolutely nothing because there's Lucio Moira back here, and they just say, okay, see ya, Reaper, and they speed forward, this isn't going to work. This only works in this slower, more methodical, more double bubble type of matchup. But it is really interesting, and I think it is really smart. Okay, Reaper TP'd in again. And again, like, I don't think he's trying to get kills. He's trying to create space. This is a space creation tool. And then if he gets the kills, that's the cherry on top. Any damage that Flora is doing shouldn't be expected to be lethal. It's more Feather's follow-up, Yakpung and Bianca's positioning follow-up that they're playing off of. Oh, I don't like this. Okay, well, actually, they cap, so maybe I do like it. But why would you put everyone over there? I would have much rather seen, like, playing... Like, sure, if you want to pressure these people out, but you don't need Yakpung over there. Or if you want Yakpung over there, you don't need everyone else over there. We should be splitting ourselves a little bit more and managing more threats. Bianca needs to have a lot more priority on Echo but I mean, Shy's not going aggressive. Shy should have been the one to touch there. This is just really awkward that Shy didn't touch, or that anyone didn't touch, I guess. And yeah, the longer these fights go on, the more chaos, the better it is for Bianca and Feather and Flora. And Yakpong just kind of exists. Yakpong does everything he can to just be a big speed bump in everyone's face, similar to kind of what Winston does a lot of the time, except you don't have the bubble for isolation. You just have your body and your pull. So, are we going to see a similar approach to second point, where there's a lot less space to work with? A lot more choke points for Gushue to engage on, and, notably of course, ultimates coming online for Spark, which is one of their biggest win conditions. Even with 5 minutes on the clock, this is... Not sure what that TP was trying to accomplish. Maybe scouting? Similar things to what we saw on Oasis University, Yakpong is the first to walk through, puts a shield up to deny follow-up from other members, solely to force back Gushue. Now the team has this space to walk through. With Gushue there in the first place, they can't walk through it. They can't just walk through a Winston, especially if they think he might have Primal or they know they have Nano. So again, that was like, it's weird to think of it this way, but like you could think of this as like, this is a huge outplay, and this is like a team fight win that's guaranteeing them space. That's like one way of approaching these kind of fights. But because they're playing such a slow comp, it's not very flashy, but this is like them following all the right steps to guarantee this space. Opening the fight up. Reaper TP with bubble. Again, not to find kills, but to guarantee that, one, no one's up here. And this is even pressuring Shy at this moment. And it's giving Flora potential to drop in any one of these directions to help follow up kills. They could pair this... They could have paired this with something like Orisa pull. But again, I don't think the purpose of this TP is to find kills. Like, he's not TPing here to try and kill IDK or to try and kill MCD or anything like that. They're TPing here to take pressure off the main core. And it's weird to say this, but like Orisa is one of your carries in this composition. The damage, especially through Amp Matrix, is a lot more than 0. And it is even more than Winston can do when he's cleaving and things like this. So Orisa is like your anchor DPS in this composition, while Flora is out causing chaos, disrupting the enemy team. Look how safe MCD has to play, which, I mean, this is good play from MCD. This is proper response to this kind of cooldown, because you're still giving yourselves angles back into the fight. But if Spark don't pick it up soon to like find a way to capitalize on these movements and these aggressive plays, and this is a bit of a long opportunity window because Amp Matrix lasts a decent amount of time, and they're going to be able to follow that up with Bongo and then potentially Grav. But Spark needs to make a play very soon. And I would hope to see a Nano Winston play followed up by Dupe, and then hopefully a slower rotation of ultimates, because again, normally this fight would favor New York over time, but since this is 2CP, it will always favor defenders over time, no matter what comp you're on. If you trade 5 members from Spark for 1 member for like Jonak on Excelsior, that's sometimes a worthwhile trade, because your spawn advantage is going to bring you back up, and their stability is slowly being chipped away. So I think what's happening right now is Excelsior has a plan to win this team fight. They're opening up with this with a TP play. They're going to follow that up with Bongo, and they're going to use Reaper ult to close out the fight. They've got Duplicate and Rally to be flexible. They've got Grav to potentially counter aggression from like Gushue or from Shy. But the question is, can they survive all of these ultimates from Spark when they decide to pull them out? Here comes the Nano with the bubble. Good cutoff. A nice Blossom to take down Architect immediately. Grav to counter Gushue's ultimate. Yakpong never dies. The copy Orisa is interesting. So we've been seeing a ton of copy D.Va in North America, right? And D.Va is probably one of the best copy targets in the game, and even better now with the remake, because like, one, you don't want to be shooting a copy Echo because it's not a kill, especially when it's a tank. And when copy D.Va turns into baby D.Va, like that's almost an even like bigger threat with the remake kill, because like 3 shots build your remake when you're copied, and it's actually absurd. So there's just so much chaos, and D.Va just becomes this immense threat when she's copied by Echo because of the ult generation and because of how tanky she is. And obviously, like, defense matrix is really good for stability in fights when absolutely necessary. Copy Orisa offers all of the stability that D.Va offers in the form of defense matrix and stuff like that, with like none of the offensive value. You're not gonna copy an Orisa and then coordinate like a pull play. You're not gonna copy Orisa to build Bongo. You're gonna copy Orisa when it's like worst case scenario and you need to live as long as possible. You need to touch the point and stuff like this. And again, because this is 2 CP defense, I like this choice, not because of the offensive options it brings, but because it stalls the point for as long as possible, meaning these members don't need to worry about touching the point. Sorry, that's not Spark. These members don't need to worry about touching the point right now, and it gives their spawners time to come back in, and they can actually coordinate a retake play. This is a time-buying ultimate more than anything. But I don't know if that's going to be enough. Goes down relatively quickly. But, oh, it's back and forth. This is looking better and better for Spark. But Yakpung never dies. He's on point. Flora gets a kill on MCD. Oh, no. Why did they commit off point? I guess it's because that's where their backline was. So it was good of New York, for sure, to acknowledge that they can't just sit around. So they need to continue this aggression. It wasn't enough to start with the window and then follow up with Bongo and then use their ultimates. It's still not enough. The fight's still not over. They didn't get a 6-man kill. They need to continue aggression, even though they're a slow-moving team. So it's really good of them to coordinate to follow up these kills on IDK. Good zoning from Friday to keep out Shy. Something Brig can do that Lucio can't. And then, yeah, the follow-up Feather goes down, which is not ideal, because again, a huge source of damage, and he even had duplicate. Even copying Anna in this situation is better than dying. They kill MCD, and that's a lot of stability gone. Shonak also lives forever. New York just looked really structured. They did a really good job of moving together during a really chaotic fight. And Spark, on the other hand, had a lot of individual split threats. We saw Shy over here on the Echo. We saw MCD over here, back here on the Ana finding an anti-nade, these kind of things. But you're never going to win 1v2s, 1v3s in these kind of situations as long as Excelsior can coordinate those things. So yeah, I mean, Excelsior's attack looked weird, but I think they had a clear game plan in mind. And I think the fact that they won a fight here with, I think they were at ult disadvantage even. I think Spark had more ultimates, and they're playing against a composition that their job is to use their ultimates. And like I said, if both teams had 6 ults, I would give the favor to Spark in those general compositions. So it's really, it looks to me like Excelsior just has better fight planning ability in these kind of situations, and Spark is relying more on individual sort of playmaking potential. And they're like, what Spark did, like, I think they were playing to their win condition. They were playing to sort of surround, split their threats and that kind of thing, but they weren't able to close out any individual value because Excelsior just had an answer for everything. They had a grab for Gushui's Primal. That was, I think, honestly the biggest thing. I didn't see even what happened with Burner's grab. Or no, yes I did. They had Jonak's lamp like saved Feather after he death blossomed, right? That's what happened. So, and then Friday had really good marking. I would have liked to see Bianca marking Shy, but Friday was marking Shy really, really well. And like, you take that 1-for-1 trade every single time. If the rest of your team is cleaning up kills 1 by 1, you absolutely take value in not trying to get a kill, but just deny value from someone like Shy, who's a huge game piece in these kind of fights. But yeah, looking at defense comps now. I'm like I said earlier, I'm mainly looking at this from Excelsior's point of view because I'm trying to understand like what exactly they did to try and upset the Spark. And like I said, Spark looks like a team who's relying more on individual playmaking potential, and that could be what's dictating their composition choice in a composition that relies heavily on how you're using your ultimates, how individuals are finding value, namely Gushui, and then followed up by Shy or Architect, these kind of things. So they're almost playing a more NA style. It's just a much slower version of it. And it's closer to a double bubble than it is more of like that rushy, brawly chaos comp that we're seeing in NA. But now we see on Excelsior's side, again, we're playing the McCree Reaper. I don't think we'll ever see them play Echo McCree. I don't think they think it's enough damage. And I think Reaper actually might be a really integral part of these compositions that maybe I don't fully understand. Like we saw it on attack, even be part of their engage tool. So I'm curious to watch more of New York's Reaper play to see exactly what they're doing. Because I think what Spark's doing with their Reaper is sort of predictable. It's hiding in the shadows, role-playing as Reaper a little bit until fights start becoming chaotic, and then committing. If you force your Wraith early, it's not that bad as long as you can get it back online by the time your opportunity window is actually there. And Feather is using that, or not Feather, it was Flora last round. New York, just in general, is using that much more aggressively because they know Reaper's cooldowns are quick enough that they'll be back on during the fight, and Reaper early on in the fight just doesn't matter. It's not until chaos breaks out, until attention starts getting split, that Reaper can really come online. So, much more aggressive use of Excelsier's cooldowns, which is really cool to see. Seems to me that Spark has issues if the script gets changed. Exactly. And Spark's script right now is already full of edits, and it's been peer-reviewed, and everyone has their own opinion on which direction they should be taking. And I think that's what's picking them apart in this match. This type of playstyle works against teams playing the same thing. If you're better players, if you can win 1v1s, if you can find better opportunities as individuals, if you can mark threats better, these kind of things, you just win if you're Spark. But if you go up against more structured coordination from this kind of lineup, then it becomes harder to find those opportunities across the board. And then if you don't find those individual opportunities, if your shallow plans of engages of just nano Winston into primal and then we're gonna just fight, if that's your only plan, if you're not prepping for getting countered for these kind of things, then that's how you fall apart in these matches. But with all that said, let's take a look at defense. And again, I want to take a really close look at Feather on the Reaper here. I think the way New York approaches Reaper is the smarter way, just in general. They don't care about Reaper's cooldowns early on in a fight, from what I saw on offense at least. And I'm guessing they're super willing to let Feather get pushed out here for an opportunity for Flora to pop off. Or even Jonak. No, I guess we're seeing the same thing from Spark here, like Architect's moving and basically just used his Wraith to scout. He went over to get some space, maybe poke him out, he saw McCree, he's like, nope. And he shifts out of there. We'll probably see the same thing from Feather. If worst case scenario, he gets poked out here, he shifts, he's back up here, he gets healed up, then he goes again. This is a very standard looking matchup. Yeah, look, he just shifts away, he gets healed up, he waits for his next opportunity. He's not going to over-aggress until he has shift available again. But even knowing that, like, oh, Bianca goes down really early, actually. Sorry, I was focusing too much on the Reaper that time. What's happening to Bianca here? Oh, we still see kill potential. But, yeah, I don't know if that's your job, Bianca. I think you need to be the one supplementing. If Reaper had Wraith in this situation and, like, had prepped a TP for this situation, or if we had Echo in this situation, absolutely we can get these kills. But Reaper's cooldowns are down. We have McCree. This is not doing anything for the rest of your team other than getting a little bit of extra damage. I think I would have rather seen not a booster commit, a drop down at Matrix to try and deny healing and let your McCree close out these kills and then fly back up to the high ground. Yeah, you never boost into a brig like that unless you know you're committing to a team fight. And the reason I know they weren't committing to a team fight and they weren't coordinating it is because Yakpung didn't do anything besides throw pull. And obviously, like, Reaper didn't have cooldowns and stuff like that. But, like, there's no reason to commit on this unless the team's, like, walking at them. And we're closing out. We're killing 6 people right now. That kind of thing. Oh, no. And then we wasted shield. Oh, no. New York, it's falling apart. Yeah. Now with the spawn advantage. Oh, man. A little bit of miscoordination there. Using Bubble and Wraith at the same time. I don't know what... What is it with Reaper players? Not really. It feels like they don't try sometimes. So one, I'll preface this. I might be a little bit judgmental because I just hate Reaper as a character. I don't think he's very interesting at all. I think his kit is very boring and feels dumb to die to. And it's literally just, it's Moira as a damage character. It's just damage the hero. Moira is just healing the hero. And I don't think Reaper is a fun hero to watch or has a lot of depth, but like, you get bubbled, you get a pack from Brig, and you don't cancel your Wraith? Come on, Architect. It just felt very lazy. And like you can play Reaper very lazily and do a ton of damage and stuff like that. But I don't know why, like, if you're gonna be going aggressive there, like, at least go for some shots. So this is worrisome now for Excelsior. So they've held out so far. They haven't given up the point or anything, which is actually pretty good given the trades that came back and forth. But now, again, since the spawn advantage, they knew they couldn't maintain this fight for very long. So they give up space. They wait for their respawns. They wait for all their cooldowns to be back, all this good stuff. What's bad about this situation is it's Temple of Anubis. Being on point is probably the worst place you can be. There is very little that members can do from down here, especially given that they don't have Echo, to be able to control space around the map. The only thing that this team comp does well is damage and stability. They do a ton of damage and they're hard to kill. So, what are they going to do to prevent Gooshway, Architect, and Shy, and even MCD, from taking space like up here, and forcing them out? Because like even if D.Va and Reaper are both up here, maybe even by some miracle, Jonak goes up and jumps up and commits up here with them, these kind of things. Even if they do this, like what's stopping Spark from just sending like a Zarya, a Brig, and a Reaper over here to just push them out? And if they try to recommit, they just back up, they have defensive cooldowns, and then they commit away from their team, and it's just a bad time for everyone. It's very hard to control the space, and eventually, as long as Spark plays a little bit patiently, they can force them all onto the ground, all into this little nook, maybe even into this corner, and then they commit with ultimates. They do the work to dislodge them, and then they commit to close out the fight. This is what the lack of flexibility in Excelsior's comp, that's how that can get punished, basically. And again, there's very little they can do to really stop that from happening. But what is Gooshway doing? We don't even have Nano. Oh, okay. Oh, I almost had a heart attack. I thought he was jumping here. I was like, what is he doing? But he was landing on the high ground. Okay, that's fine. But we are committing the duplicate from Shy. And we are committing, okay. It's just not as feedy as it. Like, you don't commit onto Orisa and just leave. I mean, so this is good because it's denying Jonak value, it's denying Friday value, it's denying Yakpong value. But again, like, this is giving Feather, and eventually Flora weighs back into the fight. And this is going to lead to unnecessary trades when it could have just been a lot cleaner. Maybe this is due to the fact that they thought Flora's spawn was longer and you wouldn't be here to influence this fight. So they're trying to go fast. It's like, hey, McCree's not there. Go fast, dive deep, these kind of things. Which I can understand at least a little bit. But yeah, duplicate ends. Like, you're not walking through this hallway. You're not walking around this corner with Orisa in your face. And where is Jonak, actually? Oh, yeah, Jonak's healing this whole time. Just making sure. Feather even wraiths to counter dive because he knows that as long as we can counter these cooldowns, I'm assuming they know they don't have Nano available. They don't have Primal available. So this is really good play. They don't need to take trades in this case. They need to survive Winston because Winston is running out of gas very quickly. And now they have an opportunity to go back in. Reaper even TPs as Feather. Feather kills Echo because he saw the commitment happen. The burst speed from Shift was already used, so it's not impossible to catch up with Echo. She's low to the ground like this. We're committing into space where the Orisa is instead of committing onto backline supports. Spark, like, is almost playing with their blinders on. The Garav is committed and no one's there to follow up. I don't even know if Flora's been doing anything. Cause nope, Flora died again. Never mind. Yeah, Flora didn't even do anything this fight. And Spark just got so impatient. They're committing Primal now with everyone dead. The TP again from Feather, and there's no one easily ready to contest. I guess doesn't find much value. I think he could have stayed up there and committed onto the Winston with packs from the Brig even. Bomb is used to remech, so that's not too bad. Gooshway overcommits again. Was he expecting to build another Primal? Like, you're walking into Orisa. You're only zapping gold at Orisa. Turn around. Turn around and help your team. Maybe he thought the bomb was on point or something, so he's like, oh, I gotta get around this corner. But Gooshway, I don't understand. This is such unsynced dive play. This is individuals seeing one thing and acting on it before they even think about if their team is ready and what kind of state the fight is in. They're playing with their blinders on. Feather tries to get another Echo kill with a Blossom this time, but Shift is available. Bit of a mistimed ult there. So after all that, at least Spark got 2 ticks. That's not the worst case, I suppose. But yeah, really eager, over-aggressive play. And I know I said that this is a much slower composition, and the longer a fight goes, this comp wins. But that's only true if they're actually leveraging position over Spark. If they're in a position on point like this, and they can't do shit to push out Gushue or Burner or MCD or Architect or Shy, like literally anyone on the team, they can't shoot at anyone important, they can't do lethal damage in the neutral, then it doesn't matter. Take your time to line up the perfect engage. Line up your cooldowns, line up your ultimates, line up your dive targets, and be clean about it. This is just over eager. Maybe they're feeling stressed. Maybe they're feeling ahead of themselves after winning Koth. And it was a very decided victory on Koth too. It was very one-sided. So maybe they feel it was like, hey, we just gotta win the game. Let's go. It's just New York. But they're being very impatient. And again, why is Gushue dropping there without like a game plan? It's forcing his jump away. So what is this drop accomplishing? Is anyone ready to go aggressive off this? Why aren't we isolating backline members? Why aren't we waiting for Shy to supplement this position? Why aren't we waiting for MCD to find a nade angle? Where is MCD right now? MCD's on the low ground. Give him 2 seconds to go right here and we'll be better off. Or up here. But we're so impatient. We put all of our focus, I'm talking from Spark's perspective now, we put all of our focus onto Yakpung, literally the one target we're never going to kill. And then we just get free fired at from all these backline members. The only one trying to do anything meaningful right now is Architect, but he knows if he goes in, Friday's there with his number. Friday's probably even going to boop him right now if he tries to drop off the high ground. Yeah. So it's like, you're just playing into Excelsior's hands like over and over again. They're so impatient.
30 seconds remaining.
And this is like making New York's job super easy too, because even on bad space doesn't matter if the enemy plays bad space as well. Why are they just playing one sightline and then dropping onto Yakpug? He's Orisa, dude. So I do understand it a little bit. I understand Gushue's decision a little bit. He's trying to isolate Yakpung from the rest of his team, so he denies any healing coming forward, so that his team can follow up this kill. And to be fair, Shy was in a position to try and kill Yakpung. Maybe if Architect dropped with them, they would have been able to kill Yakpung, so maybe this was just miscoordination. But it's not even needed because Yakpung doesn't matter. And there's squishy members back here. And we had the time and the space to coordinate a dive. And we just didn't. And this was true the last fight too, when Winston dove here and tried to just push into here. Instead of doing that so eagerly, why not wait till Shy gets over here and then you hit him from the back at the same time? Or even Architect as Reaper, you TP up here, you hit him from the back and then you wraith back to your team. There's so many better options that Spark's just not doing. They're playing very lazily. And now, because we just lost like 2 team fights in a row when we had so many advantages, we're back to neutral. We're back to New York holding better space. We're back as if we're starting the map, but we've only got 13 seconds on the clock. All that work we put in to force them onto the point is null and void.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Diva.
Echo dupe is forced to touch, and now again, like, even though Yakpung's taking all this damage, even though they're forced to respect this, like, this is no time for Spark to get any priority position. So best case scenario, they're just going to run it down with 5 people now because Shy's out of mech. And he's probably going to be going down even after turning back to Echo against 6 people like this. And they're going to go head to head. They're going to both play front to back. And that's always going to favor this team. Because they have Orisa. And yeah, now they've got the... Like, what do you do at this point? There's almost a Nano online. Burner goes down early. The Nano's going to hit. Okay. Nano hits. Architect was... What was Architect doing? We weren't waiting for the Nano? This is a play you make after Nano Winston becomes the threat, not at the same time, not before they've committed resources, and not when there's McCree Brig in their backline either, actually. I don't know if you ever make that kind of play against McCree Brig. And yeah, man, okay. I knew New York was gonna win, but that was something. That was very one-sided. Gushue didn't even use bubble. Yeah. Homestand jitter. That's right. I forgot they were playing live. I did forget that. So yeah, there is a whole nother part of the game that I'm not even thinking about, and that's like stage fright, which is very real. All right, so we're now at 1-1 going into map 3. And so far what we've seen, the story's been New York just looks like a more structured team. Spark looks like they rely on individual playmaking potential, but they're playing in ways that don't enable the important individuals as much as possible. Both DPS are playing too quickly, as well as Gushue, which isn't giving them enough time window to actually come online. And that's getting picked apart by New York. That was super obvious on Anubis. But even, I think the biggest problem on the Koth map on Oasis wasn't that New York's win condition wasn't there. It's that they weren't as aggressive to try and capitalize on it. They weren't holding forward enough. They weren't prioritizing Gushue enough and vying for space. They were also playing a little bit too quickly, but they cleaned that up for Anubis, especially on defense there. That was really well played. Whew. But yeah. All right, so looking at the comps now, Spark sticking with it, New York sticking with it. So again, no echo from New York, which is going to mean less map coverage. Thinking about these compositions on this map in particular, I think... So I love Double Bubble on this map, but one of the reasons that makes it so good is that you can run Tracer, and you just can't run Tracer in this composition. So again, normal Double Bubble comp would look like maybe Tracer Echo. Let's just make the one swap and everything else stays the same. So if we have Tracer, we can do all kinds of cool stuff. We can contest the point. We can wrap around behind them. We can go to second point. We can hit this high ground. We can hit people that drop. If we dive up here and they drop to point, we can execute them with Tracer. Reaper does not have that reach. He has more front-loaded damage, which is good, but it means he's not going to be there to finish targets. His damage needs to be a lot more unexpected, because Tracer's damage is unexpected because of her mobility and the way she can approach fights. Reaper's damage is very telegraphed and very obvious when you see it coming, or where you even see Reaper's position, or hear any of the voice lines when he teleports and stuff like that. So it's a lot harder to find those same win conditions, but that doesn't mean this is a bad composition. And going over what you would normally do on Double Bubble on this kind of map is, as we're seeing, we have a very front-loaded, or sorry, not front-loaded, very frontline heavy composition from New York, which means they're going to be playing for this space. This is the easiest space. They don't have the reach to cover both high grounds. They don't have something like Winston that can counter dive over here. Sure, they have Diva. Sure, they have Baptiste that can jump on the high grounds, but that's not enough to deal with a full dive, especially if like Reaper TPs, Echo goes aggressive, these kind of things. So I'm picturing all 6 members playing up here, denying this choke, obviously, but also being ready to capitalize on people coming up main. And then if they try to take this top right, or if they try to rotate, or if they even try to come underneath, they can always drop on them with Orisa and just be in their way, be that speed bump, or use their range in the McCree, in the Orisa, in the Baptiste to counter anyone in main and poke them out. The way you beat that with Double Bubble is by really tight cooldown usage. You look for something where Echo or Winston, or one of the divers at least, goes maybe underneath and hits them, goes maybe main and hits them, goes maybe coast and hits them at the same time that you have some members walking this way. What's interesting about Orisa actually is that because she can desync herself from her shield, she can throw a shield like here or even here aggressively, and then still focus the members that are jumping. So this might be like less viable, because normally you'd see something like a Reinhardt to be ready to brawl at this choke, and you can beat that because if Reinhardt peels back, the space is now free. If Reinhardt stays here, they're losing a lot of damage and priority in this fight. But Orisa doesn't need to choose, in the same way that Sigma doesn't need to choose. Orisa can throw a shield and walk back. Orisa can throw a shield this way and stay forward and body block. These kind of things. Although you probably wouldn't do that too often. But yeah, let's see how this plays out. Or actually, reading from chat, would Double Bubble with Pharmacy be better on this map since there's no Tracer? The problem with Pharah just in general over Echo is that you can't commit as easily. One, the damage is about equally consistent, assuming you've got a really good Pharah player and stuff like that. But you don't have the commit potential, you don't have the execution potential, and your ultimate is just a die button. So you're already playing a character with a die button in Reaper. So Duplicate 1 is, like, in my opinion, like, just a really strong ultimate, one of the best ultimates in the game. It's got so many versatile uses. And just her general playstyle is a lot more flexible as well, because even though she's not in the air as often, she's not as, I mean, I would call her more mobile, but not in the same reason. Like, she can't stay in the air for as long as Pharah and stuff like that, and she's not as maneuverable in more unique ways that Pharah is, but she can do more with her mobility, and that's like gap close, commit to targets, or even like escape tools and stuff like that. So in general, Echo is just seen as more versatile, and in the right hands also more damaging, because if you hit all your shots on Echo, you're doing more damage than Pharah. All right, yeah, I like Bianca sitting up here for some scouting. Obviously very easy for D.Va to close the distance to get back to her team, and also good to hold that position in case someone tries to jump from main. You can just disrupt that by flying through them. So Spark opting to just run it down to 6 up here. So okay. The only reason you would do this is because you know you're not committing to a fight. And if I'm Excelsior right now, what I would do, or I guess like in a perfect world, is just like almost like not commit to shooting them. Because the only thing they're doing right now is building Zarya energy and building Nano. And then they're waiting to fight with those, which is a smart win condition. But what you could do from Excelsior's point of view, but I guess if they had Echo, is you could look to almost either hard commit into them after these kind of moments, where like you have like your Orisa like around this corner without even a shield up. You have everyone else back here. Obviously, it's much harder without a Lucio. And maybe you have someone like Echo flanking behind this way. And then the moment they use their Zarya bubbles, like you act like you're going to shoot them, but then the moment they use their Zarya bubbles, you just walk through, speed, ideally with speed, or you just run into them, throw a shield up inside this room, pull them all inside, and follow up with your Reaper and Zarya damage. Or sorry, not Zarya damage, I guess D.Va damage. And try to capitalize on them, because Winston doesn't want to be in here, especially not with an Orisa in his face. And if you collapse on them with Echo too, like again, you're not trying to kill Winston in these kind of situations. You would be trying to force all their attention forward and force them to panic and get a bunch of sticky bomb damage and stuff like that. But very hard to make that call in the moment. And worst case scenario for New York, like, sure, they built some ultimates. Hopefully we can still deal with them. Echo sitting main is interesting to me, especially against McCree. Seems very easy to shut that down. And Jonak as well. Jonak is a beast. Also with Echo sitting main, this makes this commitment here like even that much easier. What? Show me what their brig is doing. So they why commit from in here? If you're playing Winston, why are you playing it like a charging Reinhardt? I know Reinhardt's banned, but this makes zero sense to me. One, because we're not actually zoning backline. There's nothing here that's being zoned by this bubble. Two, we're not syncing our coordination with Echo. Are they just not talking to each other? Can they not hear each other because they're the crowd or something like that? And three, like we haven't even built our win condition. How could you possibly think you have an advantage in this matchup from this space that you warrant a commitment from Gooshway's jump there? How could you possibly think that? Oh, I see why. I understand now. But again, even this seems a little bit desynced. So actually, I mentioned before that Architect was going too early, so this is him reining it back. So this, again, you just don't do this without Echo available and without Nano available. You just don't. There's the opportunity window is too small that by the time they've decided to commit onto Gooshway, he's already dead. But now Architect's coming in. This is his ideal time to capitalize. Obviously, ideally, not everyone dies in this very same moment. And obviously, ideally, Echo's here throwing in sticky bombs and getting extra damage. And taking even more of McCree's attention and these kind of things. But now Reaper's in. He does get the kill. But obviously, it's not enough. And then, yeah, Echo's like, oh, sorry I'm late, guys. I got stuck in traffic. So they have Guxue here because they know no one else can go through this door against Orisa. He's the only one who can jump past Orisa. If they try to put like everyone else except and leave Guxue main, just Orisa's going to body block every single one of them and never die. And then Lamp goes right here and she'll really never die. So I understand at least a little bit of what they're trying to do, but you don't do that without ultimates. You, at bare minimum, you need nano. Bare minimum. Alright, now they're deciding to go main. The problem with going main, as I said, the range favors New York leading up to this moment, and at this point, yeah, Flora's back on the McCree, so yeah, even after getting that pick, he's still back ready to poke these people out. It's very hard for Shy to approach from this angle. I would like to see Shy going maybe underneath, or I guess Architect's taking underneath, so never mind. Maybe Coast, but again, you're just getting no healing. If you get headshot once, you're out of the fight for 10 seconds. These kind of things are all bad, so Shy's forced to play with the team. Honestly, again, I'd like to see IDK on Mercy. Pocket your Echo. Go this way so that you have more of an opportunity window and you're not forced into a very linear win condition. I'm not sure what Brig's doing here anyway. They're not countering any engages. Rally's okay. Okay, now we're going in with Nano. Oh, nice kill from Flora. I'm guessing he was waiting because they probably scouted the Architect flank last time and Flora's like, not again. Oh yeah, Friday's right there. Again, you just don't make this play against McCree Brig if they're paying attention. You never get away with it. Even if Excelsior was on Lucio right now, this might have even been a kill. It might have boofed Architect off the map. So Friday's on top of his job. Flora's on top of the follow-up. And yeah, they're committing so much, and they're getting nothing from it. Oh, maybe they get a tick. Oh, Flora goes a bit aggressive for... Oh no, Flora! Oh, Friday! Friday and Jonak, both heroes in that situation. The grab is committed. Orisa finally dies. Some huge sleeps coming out from MCD, by the way. He slept both the High Noon and that Diva on point. And I really think that's what's carrying him through this fight. So, New York, at this point... Let me go back even further, actually. After killing Architect, New York says to themselves, what the hell is Spark doing? We have advantage now, we can push. They killed Architect, they've used their Nano engage, they know they're coming up in Primal, maybe Grav, and they're using Copy onto Diva right now. The problem with committing this early, especially this High Noon play, without proper pocketing, again, like obviously, not sure why we're High Nooning and Bianca's dropping. If this was just Matrixed or body blocked by Bianca, this wipes the entire team. We got way too focused on not giving up a tick because ultimately one tick really doesn't matter on a map like this, especially when this is one of like, if we full hold this map, we're already 2 minutes down. This is one of like 2 or 3 good ult opportunities that Spark's going to get. Let them have a tick for it. Maybe next time they'll get one more tick if we play the exact same way. Let them take a tick here. If anyone's dropping to point, it's Yakpung, which he did, so Bianca needs to be there to pocket people like Flora and Feather and playing more for the aggressive window. At this point, with the High Noon out of commission, this is no longer an aggressive moment. We made our play, we dropped for our space, they are countering with Copy Diva Bomb, and they still have these 2 tank ultimates available. I'm not sure why we're pushing. We should be baiting them to continue this fight and keeping it running as long as possible, making sure we keep Flora alive. The one thing I could say is maybe they're trying to get away from this Diva Bomb. But yeah, I would have rather seen Yakpung play the point, can kite back here if they get pressured, can hold here. Holding here versus holding here is really doing nothing for your team if they're on high ground. Both spaces is basically equal. And then have Bianca maintain the high ground, and then if they see an opportunity to continue aggression, again, I don't think they had an opportunity based on the copy still being going out, the Diva Bomb coming out. Then they coordinate something like a forward shield, a pull, Diva boosting into their backline, and McCree dropping to chase. But you don't do those things one by one. You don't do those things with only the tank line, especially. And you need to respect their ultimate economy. Because even though we were starting this fight at advantage, it wasn't a big enough advantage to just close out the fight right then. They hadn't used any ultimates. I guess besides the nano. And we just walked up like they didn't have anything. It's not all about numbers in the Overwatch League. It's not always about we got the first pick, we're going to win the fight. There are so many other things to take into account. And in that case, Spark had both ultimate advantage, and because New York had dropped, they had positional advantage because they had the mobility to go on the high ground, and New York didn't. New York coming back out. I like this approach, taking a lot of natural cover. Forcing Gushue back. Now we can throw up a shield. Yeah. And we just let the cart come to this corner, and we dare them to come touch it. These long sight lines are fantastic for the Orisa comp. Flora is free. What do you do to touch Flora in this composition? Like, what do you do unless you have Tracer flanking around the map? It takes so long for Architect to approach this fight, and then he just gets domed. Like, look what Architect was doing this entire time. He TPs. Oh wait, I saw him going on a much farther flank. So he was going high ground. During this whole time, Gushue was forced to jump back because he was taking too much damage. They're now making an ultimate play with the bongo. Architect saying, like, oh, I've just spent 5 years making this flank. I've got to do something to make it pay off. He goes for the TP. Flora scouts him even before the TP goes off, so good awareness. And then Flora's already looking for him. He's on the hunt. He goes in, gets 1 shot, 2 shot, stunned, headshot, dead. And again, this play would have been okay if Spark had already been committed, if they were already taking Flora's and Friday's attention, as well as many other people as possible. Ideally, you do that with a Nano Winston or with an aggressive rally play. That's fine. Or a copy play or anything like that. Sure. But then it's Reaper after the fact. Reaper's not in at the same time. Reaper's in a beat later because it's too easy to identify the biggest threat when there's Reaper TPing onto your backline. And again, you just don't make that play against Brig McCree. And now, there's not a single person that can threaten Flora. And the ultimates come out. Honestly, I don't even think the ultimates were needed, but I understand in the moment, there's a lot of chaos. You close out fights when you know you can win them. Yeah, obviously, like, very hard to approach from Spark. Like, how do you close this distance as Gushue? Maybe you flank this way and like you try and dive backline and stuff like that. But then who matches frontline? Who matches the Orisa shield? How does Shy get in? How does Burner get in? These kind of things. Very hard to approach. This is why you see this comp being so popular in NA even. Even though the brawlier version of Spark's comp with the Lucio Moira would have an easier time closing this distance, it's still a very hard job to do. It's still a lot of distance to cover, and even with speed boost, even with no threatened backline members, it's still a lot of gunfire to walk through. That becomes very, very hard. Aggressive bomb into pull. Oh, Shy. He went in the bubble. That's kind of whatever, though. You trade Diva Bomb for 15 seconds. Sure. Typically, you don't see many aggressive Diva Bomb plays. I think New York felt... I'm not sure what New York felt. Maybe they just needed more time to build other ultimates, more important ultimates like Bongo, like Reaper ult, like another... what's it called? The Baptiste Matrix, these kind of things. But really, this Diva Bomb, like, sure, it stops a team fight from happening, but you'd rather have even just like a fresh mech from having Diva Bomb available in mid-fight. You'd rather like to be able to go all in on someone like Shy if you're Bianca, knowing that you've got a new mech in store because you've got your ultimate, these kind of things. But, like I said, free 15 seconds, not the worst.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Diva.
This is the problem with trying to get through this composition. Really good kiting from New York's backline. Flora never fell below like 150 HP, I don't think. Yakpung never dies. Oh my god, the Blossom though. This is where Reaper comes online. After everything's been used, after everything, attention is everywhere else, after people are split up, there's no more Matrix available. That was a really good play from Architect, and really showing how important patience is. But look how hard it was for Spark to even get in. So one, They're doing their normal commit. They're bubbling. They know they have primal. They're using copy. Fine engage. Good engage tools. But they know this isn't enough to close out the fight. So, and I think New York knows this as well. This is why they're so far up. Normally, like we saw them back here. This is the longest sight line. This is the safest position for them to play. As we saw in Oasis University, playing the safest position isn't always going to win you a team fight. So they hold further up, meaning Guxue and crew are forced to start their engage from back here. It's much harder to get to here, to here, to here from here, obviously, than it is from, say, this corner. So they're playing this position, but Flora and Jonak and Friday, they're already talking to each other about where they're going towards the end of second point. So as soon as Guxue goes in, like, sure, it's a good engage. There's a lot of stuff going forward. There's even an anti-nade that hits Friday. But look how much space they have, and now look how spread out Spark's team is. And Feather's using this opportunity to try and go aggressive, but he gets marked by IDK. I think Feather, again, just a hair too early. If they had waited for... I'm not sure exactly what the trigger is. I have Reaper... I don't know. Reaper's a dumb hero. But ideally here, Reaper... Maybe... I'm trying to think of like how teams are using Reaper now. So maybe for Feather... This counter engage, again, it's not kill threat, it's relieving pressure. The same way they were using Reaper TP to engage to relieve pressure and force Winston back, this is to deny as much follow-up to this engage as possible versus this counter aggression. And I think this is the biggest difference between the way New York plays Reaper and how Spark plays Reaper. Spark plays Reaper as a carry. Architect is the one closing out these fights with Blossom, with damage and these kind of things. They're playing to set him up. New York seems to be playing Reaper almost like a Sombra, where like you're countering this engage with like aggressive position to land a hack, but you're countering this engage with aggressive position to get damage on supports and force their attention so that there's less healing for the tanks that move forward. There's less healing for Architect who's trying to move forward, these kind of things. But I haven't seen enough consistency in that level of playmaking to know if that's for sure what their game plan is. But what I do know is that because they're playing Orisa, this split is so safe because no one wants to go deal with Orisa. The moment they go deal with Orisa is the moment that Guxue dies. Because if they don't follow up Guxue's aggression, these three members have a ton of threat. And they need to make something happen with these cooldowns. Again, this composition is very cooldown, very ultimate based. They need to make something happen. And they almost don't. So like you see Yakwan controlling the cart, playing slow, staying alive. And Guxue acknowledged like, okay, this is too far. I've already jumped from here to here to here and booped them this way. I can't go any further. So he starts backing up. Feather, over aggressive, does get killed with his Blossom available, which is a little unfortunate. Again, I think he was just a hair too early. Would have liked to see either... So it reaches a point where like committing from A to B, fairly easy for Spark, but then from B to C, where Flora was kiting to, becomes too hard. And as Feather, I think trying to capitalize on their first commitment was too eager. But then if they were to try and capitalize on going to C, then you come out. Then you try burning down people like Burner. Then you try and zoning out MCD and people like that. Otherwise, you could even just play defensively. You could play to peel with the rest of your team and just burn down Guxue, playing around this corner maybe. And then if Guxue jumps past you, then you can move up, then you can flank, stuff like that. But I think what is common about both Reapers is they're both trying to stay hidden until they end up committing somewhere, which is good. And then yeah, Architect, it sucks that Bianca's mech was already so low, but yeah, this is huge value because we saw New York had used all their breath trying to stabilize from the engage, that they finally had a closing out tool to get all the kills. Good forward position. They should have this capped. New York has a couple ults to come back with, but with like Grav and Nano available. Why aren't Spark committing? Okay, their Grav comes out. What is this Nano timing? What? So why doesn't the Nano hit right now? And why don't they go aggressive to counter this high noon? Why are we jumping defensively right now when we have these engage tools, when we have Nano, when we have Grav, when we have Rally? Instead, they opt to stabilize. Again, This is the comp that wins in longer engages. The longer a fight goes on, the better it is for Yakpong, the better it is for Flora. The longer engage goes on, the worse it is for Gushue, the worse it is for Architect. Unless they can find like game-winning plays, right? Maybe it's better for Burner, sure. But you're not really playing for Zarya in this composition. You're playing for your DPS primarily, and you're playing off of Gushue. So why are they playing so slowly here? What? They're all on the ground. Why not just dive? Like, Bianca and Yakpong are trying to get to the point, and they're not going to have resources to peel for a Nano Winston to their backline. Why not go aggressive? This is the one situation where I would say, Architect, go for a backline TP. Go aggressive with your Nano Winston, use his bubble. Shy, if you're up here, maybe set up a flank. You know they don't have time to go rotate to the high ground, and if they're going to touch, they don't have time to rotate to the high ground, so play up here, be ready to hit their backline. Go more aggressive, not play more passive here. What are we doing back here? They are never going to cross even like this line, but let alone this line. So why do we have so many members back here cutting to this for this high noon? We should be more aggressive. We should have had people like on the high ground, on these flanks, ready to push, ready to drop. But now, because we let them walk out, because we let their tanks out, the only real targets are Bianca and Yakpong. I guess Feather because he's trying to go aggressive, but he's being pretty hard pocketed right now. Goes for the Blossom, doesn't find much, as expected. The grab comes through. Was Lamp used early? I didn't even see where Lamp was used, yeah. Where was the Lamp used? I don't see your Lamp, Jonak. Okay, he hasn't used it. Oh, it was to save Feather. Again, like, very eager play. At this point, if Feather dies back here, I mean, obviously, Feather dying is bad. You always trade Lamp for a death, but obviously would rather have Lamp for this. And I think that's what's going to close things up for Spark. Or is it? Okay, Bongo goes down immediately. Feather goes down. Now we're going aggressive. This is good.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Orisa.
They're really stabilizing. So this is an example again, I think, of that Anubis fight where, or are they stabilizing actually? Feather's back now. So funnily enough, this is like the one point on Nimbani where spawns are basically even. It's not even defender favored. These are like even spawns. The bomb is available.
30 seconds remaining.
Nice pull from Yakpong. I'm gonna go back and watch how this fight started, but this better not end in New York's favor. The lamp of the century! Okay, Bianca still goes down. Oh my god, Flora's killing everything. Okay, no, it's over. Okay. We did it, Spark. Good job. So let's go back 5 years to when this fight started. Still going. Still going. Still going. Still going. Alright, we're almost at the beginning. Alright, so right after this grab. All you have to do right now, if you're Spark, is just still continue to play around your cooldowns. Don't get over aggressive. Don't try to take 1v1s. Shy, this is a good position to be in, but not for much longer. So you need to be ready to fall back. Does Shy have his boost available? He does. So if Shy dies here, this is 100% on hit. So this is a good position to have. Again, like, this is good pressure. Really good position to burn down the Bongo. Again, we're still winning this fight. Spark. We've forced them into the space we want to. Our backline's completely uncontested. We can go aggressive with our next set of cooldowns. We even have Primal coming online soon with Duplicate. We kill the Reaper, the most consistent, I guess, not with McCree, never mind, but one of the most consistent and most threatening damage sources on the enemy team. Burner walks up with Self Bubble and gets bashed. Gushue jumps in at the same time. So one, when you're playing double bubble, like, Zarya plays like McCree. You don't play Zarya like a tank in this composition. Zarya plays like a damage threat more than anything else. And maybe they were frustrated that they didn't get any kills from their own grab or things like this. But this position was so sick. You could do so much from this position. But then we opt to walk out. We get pulled. We use self bubble. So we get the kill on Feather. That's huge. That's good. We get the kill. we self-bubble. After our bubble expires, we maintain this position, and we walk further into open space. Into flashbang, into bash. Headshot, headshot, headshot. Flora gets the kill. Gushwei's jump was to zone out, I assume, Jonak, who is no longer threatened by it, and even being anti-nated, Jonak survives. Both Flora and Jonak survive that dive after being anti-nated because there's no follow-up from Shy. What was Shy looking at during that exchange? He's trying to beam down an Orisa. Okay, now he's shooting, and then he copies Orisa. Again, they're being very aggressive. They're trying to close this fight out right away, but that's leading to individual decisions happening back to back to back. Or Winston jumping, then Shy's aggressing, then, Bernard aggressed even before all that, but it's like one by one by one, and right now, like, New York's just playing whack-a-mole. They dealt with Burner, done. Sure, Feather died for it. Now, they deal with the Gushwei, they kite him, they use an ultimate. Now, they deal with Shy, he's duplicated, burned down immediately. Gushwei jumps again, onto a brig. He's gonna have Primal, so it really doesn't matter. But what is this target priority? Finally gets the kill on Brig. Everyone else is dealing with Jonak and tanks on point. A trade goes on to Shy, who again was aggressing onto a different target without backup. Yakpong never dies. Feather's back now. Bianca loses mech, but it doesn't matter because he's got bomb. I would like to see Feather play more passive here, maybe lean towards his right side, and then look to just poke out tanks and be a side threat. No reason for Feather to be on point right now. Even potentially like going for a TP play like above here to like draw some attention and stall out the point even longer would be better than what he's doing right now. Again, he doesn't need to be a kill threat right now. They're playing to stall. They're playing for stability. They don't have healers back yet, so they need to do something to relieve pressure, not play this slowly. The bubble is huge. The nade is huge. And yeah, they finally close things out. Eventually. That lamp was huge, obviously. Shy goes down again. So the high noon play is happening. Both your cooldown, like, here we go. Here's a better angle. Here we go. Here's more information. Maybe over here. Maybe following up Feather. Who are you supporting from over here? I don't understand. And this is like, they're so individually greedy. And they're all thinking for themselves and what they want to do as individuals. And then all it takes is for New York to say, hey, Friday, want to go kill this Echo? Yeah, sure, dude. But yeah, the bubble, the blossom, that's enough to close things out. But that was so chaotic for no reason. And it's very, I don't want to like down talk these players too much because like this is incredibly hard to organize in the middle of a team fight. I get that. But this is the whole purpose of your composition, is to layer your resources and layer your very important cooldowns together. And both Shy and Architect have been getting punished way too often, just completely underestimating the value of stuns and pulls and slows and isolation damage. You're not pocketed as Echo. You don't even have LOS to your Brig from that position. Why are you peeking before anything has happened? Wait here. Let your team give you information. Let Gushwei call a dive, then go peek. Hey, we don't see McCree. Maybe he's going to flush you out. Be careful. Hey, they're Orisa pulling you up top. Back up. Why are you peeking this for some poke damage? And like I said, like it's super easy stuff to say in hindsight. In the moment, these are very tough calls to make and very hard to make this information flow. But God, it's painful to see people just going down for no reason. Again, some very long sightlines here. Benefits New York's comp a lot more than Spark's comp. Hard to close the distance, all these kind of things. High Noon being procced and kills Echo. Nice. Probably punishing a shift there after they were going for some poke. High Noon is not typically seen a lot in this meta, so probably something they're not tracking super well. Maybe they were just got complacent a little bit. Nice flank from Feather, followed up by aggression. Feather's able to make more aggressive plays because there's not a defensive McCree in their backline. The Brig, I think, was committed elsewhere. Maybe he had that information, hard to tell. MCD? He's already switching sides. It's at halftime. He's going back to the defender spawn now that he's on defense.
Score
Ooh.
2-2. Switching sides. Initiating match.
Okay. It's been 2.5 maps, and Spark has looked worse every new map we're looking at. It's been very chaotic, and I would understand a lot more of this chaos if they were playing a mirror match, but they are playing against a very different composition, and they are not respecting how different that composition plays. They are committing too much too early, and they are losing track of each other's cooldowns, and they are losing track of each other's positions and target focus even. In order to win maps like this, Spark just needs to coordinate better. But yeah. New York, honestly, if they play their attack as well as they did on Anubis, they should have this in the bag. So they swap Flora onto a Hanzo, and they're playing Hanzo Reaper. So they don't want McCree, because McCree's too inflexible on this type of map on this point. They want Hanzo for the ability to off-angle, to climb high grounds, and just have more front-facing damage onto tanks and stuff like that. I understand this pick. They don't want to play Echo for some reason. Maybe they feel the skybox is too low. Maybe they feel this angle is too easy to threaten. Like we saw MCD landing all of his shots onto Feather earlier. So Feather's like, hey, if we want to control this angle, I can't do it as Echo. Let's try Hanzo. I could understand that reasoning. At this point, New York knows what Spark's going to play, obviously. They've been playing the same thing every single map. But it's an interesting choice. Let's see how it pays off. It's really up to Flora to find a ton of value on the flank because there's no follow-up potential in the same way that you have Echo. If you have Echo over here doing the same thing that Hanzo does, one, they do comparable damage. Sure, you don't have the one-shot potential from Hanzo arrows, but that rarely matters. And what Echo brings that Hanzo doesn't is the gap close, the execution damage once the engage actually starts evolving. Best Hanzo can do is sort of walk forward and just keep taking shots, mainly into tanks, I'm guessing. And then, obviously, if it evolves onto point, Hanzo's having a great time, but until they completely dislodge his space, it can be very, very hard. Hanzo also doesn't really have the option of going anywhere else, like coast or underneath, where Echo could try and like fly up and dive backline and stuff like that. Hanzo can't do any of that. All right, so they're all going main. They're not even trying to take the high ground, which I think is interesting, because I think it'd be really easy to take this high ground. It'd be really easy, because like what we saw previously is them focusing Guxue's position, trying to force his jump, taking space off that, setting up Yakpung, setting up Bianca and Jonak, all these kind of things. And then for their next rotation, then they look to punish. But they always started, at least for the most part, by dislodging Guxue. So it's interesting to me they're just opting to go straight to the objective. This is making Flora's angle even better, because it's a lot safer now. If anyone tries to go aggressive onto Flora, like maybe Shy, they're going to be followed up by more healing onto Flora. And more just presence. It's going to be harder for Winston to jump across with maybe like an Orisa pull threatening to take him down or something like that, or just the amount of damage coming through. During this time, is Feather doing anything cool? Nope, Feather's with a team. Okay. So pretty straightforward approach. Architect is the one making the aggressive play here. But Friday says nope. They play this nice and slow. Another TP. They need to work on this execution. So, TP with Bubble. I'm sure you guys know. When Reaper is TPing, until his model is here, there's like a little ethereal thing that looks like he's going to be here. But a lot of people have gotten down the timing where you can land a sleep dart, you can land a Brig Bash, you can land a headshot from something like a Hanzo to punish that. So the reason they're putting a bubble on Reaper is to deny that value and make sure that Reaper is a viable threat, not just a spooky ghost that's just like a little jump scare. So what that means is in order for that to work, they can't just bluff it. They can't just be like, oh, I'm TPing, I'm gonna get you, Gushue, and do something like this, where they bubble him like really early. Like, watch, it's not even like, there's still like half a second left in this animation. Now he's finally there. As you can see, the bubble went with him. This is like the exact moment you'd want to be bubbling. Since there's no like bash threat, flash threat, sleep threat from this range, you could even like wait till he TPs up here and then bubble him as Bianca, I think. But you would need literal perfect information to know that. So at the very least, I can say be tighter on this timing. This is something you can practice in ranked and get down fairly easily. And because this bubble's so late, it immediately wears off. Feather wraiths away right away. Like, at least take like 1 or 2 shots onto Gushue. Again, like you couldn't because there was no bubble. Or the bubble timing was bad. But yeah, that was just really awkward looking. I want to believe they're still making the big brain play I thought they were making on Anubis, where they're trying to like scare Gushue into jumping away, which is going to enable potential follow-up damage, or he's going to jump onto point, which is going to enable follow-up damage, or he's going to jump away, which is going to enable damage onto people like Bernard and IDK. But as we saw, none of that happened. So it's hard to say. Yakpong trying to threaten the objective here, which is going to force potentially Gushue to drop. How did Shy die? Shy's been dying first, like, fairly consistently. I wonder if Excelsior is putting a lot of focus onto his position because of, I don't know. I haven't been watching a lot of APEC, but it's possible Shy has like a notoriously aggressive playstyle on Echo, and they're playing to capitalize on that. Oops. So the TP comes through, again with Bubble, to try and threaten some damage. It does force the shift from Shy, and again, like, this is some space that they're creating. Shy being this low, shifting back, means less damage on the Yakpung as he walks forward. I don't think the intention here is to kill Shy, but to enable this rotation. I'm going to keep saying this because I think it's smart, and because I think it's what New York is doing. Even if it's not what they're doing, I think it is passive value that they're finding. And then they just happen to find the kill from some stray bullets from Orisa. That's some nice tracking from Yakpung. And yeah, obviously Feather completely safe. You're never, again, even if you weren't expecting to get that skill, I think it's still of value. And now look at all the space they have without Shy in the mix. Sure, they have to respect the Winston jump, but yeah, Flora just goes right back up to the high ground. And he's sort of this independent threat. Jonak up there with him now to support him. God, Jonak is just riding the edge with these lamps. Nice dragon. Oh my god. Flora. Okay, well, Flora is also apparently insane on the Hanzo, so another reason to pick that hero. But yeah, that was obviously a really good way to open the fight, and then just consistent pressure from both point presence from Yakpung and just like the untouchable threat, and then the good follow from Flora. Even though it's a lot less flexible than something like Echo, they did a really good job of following up. They built their ult extremely quickly, most likely by popping Gushue in the head a bunch of times, and then they followed that up really, really well. That was just clean play. Like, Spark couldn't do anything once Shy died. Spark playing extremely far back. New York pretty happy to just sit on payload. Very easy for all of these members to just stabilize once they get dove. Feather goes down. Where did Feather die? Going for a Death Blossom play. Okay. Bit over aggressive and a bit too in the middle of things. Would have liked to see either like a deeper commit or a longer wait. But despite everything happening, Flora's position is still, like, while not as aggressive as you might see an Echo be able to be, again, still very valuable. Treequay just jumps into his death. And yeah, like, New York's unstoppable right now. They're just running it down. Spark just has no idea how to approach. They swapped Architect onto a Genji to try and enable a harder commit because it's too hard for Reaper. Reaper's TP is getting punished too often. They're scouting his rotations too often. So they're trying to, again, if anything, they're becoming more linear, which is not what they need to do. By picking Genji, sure, he's a slightly more mobile, he's got wall climb and stuff like that, but they're picking Genji because of the gap closing potential, I'm guessing. Because they want to be able to follow up Guxue faster. Not with more reliable damage, not with smarter approaches, just faster. And New York is fine with that, because as long as they predict the cooldowns and they position accordingly for them, it doesn't matter how fast you're going. They just need to survive it, and then you run out of gas, and then New York rolls over you. Ooh. Nice execution timing. Yeah. There's so much damage. Spark didn't even get a chance to use their ultimates. That was crazy. So this is really cool timing, not because like it's an insane play or anything like this, but because Spark aren't expecting it. And this is such an important level of I almost want to call it deception, but people also call it conditioning in games like Counter-Strike and tactical shooters like that, where 3 fights in a row now, New York's played extremely slow, very deliberately around Yakbung's cooldowns and around Flora's positioning. Right now, all the information Spark has is that they're going to be able to use their ultimates the way they want to. And New York knows they're at an ultimate disadvantage. So what do? They could try to kite out big ultimates like Primal into Nano, maybe even into Grab and Blade eventually, or they can catch them off guard before they even set these up, because right now Spark has the confidence to set up this aggressively with someone immobile like Bernard, who is very much a viable kill target when you have this much damage on your team, and something like a Risipol to keep them in place. And they opt to do that in such a fast and decisive manner. Like, look how fast Bernard is with self-bubble available, with both healers on him. MCD doesn't even have time to nade at the ground. That's how fast they went down. And this wasn't like a hugely coordinated play or anything. It's just their timing was so clean. And they caught them off guard. So whether this was intentional conditioning or just like a byproduct of the way the past fights have been going, this was a really smart play, a really decisive play, and a really good highlight of how synergistic New York is looking. Spark has not had a single play that looked this clean. All of their fight wins that have been decisive have come from like one individual popping off with a big ultimate, whether that's Guxue finding like huge primal value, or Architect finding a huge blossom, or Shy's duplicates finding tons of value and stuff like that. It hasn't looked like a big decisive team fight win from like a macro level. It's looked like they did enough to let one of our players finish the fight. It's not that they decisively made these actions happen one by one or anything like that. And then, yeah, very clean team fight. At this point, they know, even if they commit something like... I mean, where is the Winston at this point? He's primaling the backline. Okay, he was setting up during that all the time. So maybe even they had information about Winston not being there because they knew he was dead at a certain point. They didn't see him in the front line. They maybe expected him to be flanking behind with Primal. Who knows? Maybe they scouted him. I have no idea. But that was just such a clean, decisive play. And that seems to me to be like the biggest difference between these two teams. Whew, that was crazy. All right, final map. And I know this one's a quick one. We're going into Game 4 Dorado. And let's see. Yeah, this is a 9-minute game. This is a very quick round. So let's fast forward a bit to where it starts. So finally we see Spark on a different composition. Are they actually going to roll out on this? Is this just for like early scouting? So this, to me, this is not a calculated decision. This is, we cannot win this matchup. We have no idea what we're doing. We're going to mirror them. And the reason I say that is because, one, we haven't seen this composition at all, even on points where I think it would be favored, like Numbani second and third. We also haven't seen this DPS combo ever from New York, and I think that's deliberate, and I think it's because there's not enough damage, and I think Spark's running it because these are what their players want to play the most. Out of all the heroes they've seen New York run, they like McCree, they like Echo, they hate Reaper. Architect's been getting shut down on Reaper. He's been trying to make over-aggressive plays that aren't warranted, and it seems to me like they have a much looser understanding of what Reaper does in the meta right now versus New York, who makes very deliberate decisions, even though they look kind of bad sometimes, like with the Reaper TPs with bubbles. Their decisions are very deliberate, and it's never just an individual Reaper play that's happening. It's people playing around the Reaper, or people supplementing the Reaper's play, or Reaper supplementing someone else's play by doing something on New York's side. So, Spark's opting for, in my opinion, suboptimal DPS line. They don't have the same engage tools that they would have from like a Reaper flank or Reaper TP. They don't have the same tank frontline damage. They don't have the same technically flanking potential, even though it's weird to say that. And they're rolling out on these heroes because they want to play them. That's my take. Hard to say. They're also, they also default to D.Va. I assume D.Va on this map just because of how heavy the high grounds are, not just for first point, but for all 3 points. Versus Nimbani, where Zarya might not be favored first point, but second and third, I think does a lot of work still. But yeah, HANGZHOU SPARK just got boomed, and I'm guessing they've at least played this composition before, but I know Gushui's not happy playing Orisa. I know this is not something they practiced heavily, because it's not something they brought out on any map previous to this. It's almost like a panic decision, and they feel, again, I think based on their playstyle, a lot of what I've seen from Spark is they feel they have better players. They have more individual playmaking potential. They have better mechanical prowess, all these kind of things. They make better individual decisions. The question is whether or not they're going to be able to translate that into decent enough macro play to make sure they can put themselves in a good position to pop off individually. And what we've seen from New York is just really clean, tight, team-wide playmaking, commitments, cooldown usage, all these things. And if they keep that up, this should be in the bag. I'm sure that New York has a better understanding of this matchup than Spark does. So let's see how they use that. Using the sightlines here. Very fast rotation from New York. They don't want to play the high ground at all, probably because they don't have an Echo that really benefits from maneuvering around up there. They want to maintain as much space as possible, so they'd like to be up here for their McCree, obviously, but this is way too vulnerable for someone like an Echo to capitalize on, for D.Va to capitalize on, for even a counter rotation to happen this way. And on top of all of that, they don't want people to wrap this way and trap them in this kind of space while they push the payload. So yeah, New York's very happy just matching right now. They will play slow all day. Spark's shown how impatient they are in this matchup. They're just going to mark these 2 chokes and we'll say, hey, come into us. We have sightlines. We have range damage. And we have a Reaper that you don't have. Oh my god. Jonak has built his ultimate in the time that MCD got 40%. Another highlight of the fact that just... I haven't even been talking about Jonak's ant trees, but now thinking back on it, he has won like almost every single fight, now that I'm thinking about it. This is very clearly like part of their win condition for this composition that Spark is just not playing for because they don't know the composition as well. Now they're ready to commit. Now they know in this matchup they can play slow, they can play for that win condition more often because they're not worried about aggressive cooldowns like dives and bubbles in this matchup. Yeah, they don't care about going aggressive. They throw down lamps, they go in, they run it down, they put Yakbung in their face, and they let Reaper pop off. Flora does go down. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Bit of a stagger on burner. God, New York just looks so much better right now. I know it's only been 1 fight, but that was just like... I didn't even realize how fast he was charging ultimate. He might even have another one before MCD builds his first one. Flora coming back on Ashe. I think this is matchup dependent, obviously. You want McCree to help one survive with the extra 25 HP, to add CC to deal with enemy Reapers, and to generally be like the tankier version of Ashe against a faster composition like a Winston Zarya. Against a slower or more mirrored composition with the Orisa, you want just 4 flat-out damage because it's easier enough to kite, it's easier enough to reposition, and you can use range a lot more often. They're going to be in longer ranges for longer because they're less mobile, and you can capitalize on that. You can also get around shields with Dynamite, obviously, and I think Bob is not hugely better, but a better ultimate than High Noon. Why isn't my play button working? There we go. And I guess technically also gets back from spawn a little bit faster as Ashe over McCree, but that's not really anything. Yeah, they'll just play slow all day. Now, Spark's thinking, oh, maybe now we build Baptiste ult after we're 2 minutes into the map.
It's hand.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Diva.
A little bit awkward for Flora and Jonah getting split there. So now this is just a lot of chaos. So let's look back at how Spark opened this fight. So I both like and don't like the high noon play. I think it's a little too telegraphed. It's a little too obvious, too easy to deal with. And I also think they were trying to get too much too fast. So again, thinking back to how New York plays this composition, when they do create space like this, it's kind of like a two-step process. You don't here, let me go to the yellow pen actually. You both don't A, create space, and B, close out the fight. You do A first, then you wait for, or you allow something else to be a playmaking potential to then enable B. A can lead into B, but it doesn't guarantee B. So I think Spark is just getting, they're going really quickly here, which I think is telling other playstyle. They commit both ultimates almost simultaneously with the high noon and the copy, and both are doing the same job. So they're doing their jobs, which is why I like it. But I think they could be cleaner about it, and they could be smarter about how they're actually using them. They also need to identify these people way sooner and not commit on to where the Orisa is, because there's just no point. I mean, maybe there's some point. I guess that much damage through a matrix. I think Yakpon was expecting, I'm guessing his shield was like 1 second. Oh, he threw his shield even. Where did his shield go? Did he just get immediately melted? Okay, I just missed that. But yeah, a slight misplay, not respecting the damage and the amount of ultimates being used from New York. But now in this chaos, because Spark's committed so linearly, all in one direction like this, it's left Flora and Friday a little bit uncontested. And as long as they can stay alive right now, they should be able to retake. Nice, another pick from Flora. Yeah, they should be able to touch. Can Yakpon get out there? Hopefully Friday doesn't need to touch. Oh, Friday might need to touch. Why are we backing up? Why are we so far back, Spark? If Architect pushes point right now and Gushui stands in this doorway, they cap first point. Like, why are we so far back? Gushui, your job is to just, I mean, not die, but be the big punching bag in their way. If that means body blocking, if that means taking a stun, it means so that we guarantee this point cap, like, absolutely you do that. Maybe, I mean, it's possible they felt that either A, they didn't have enough time, or B, there'd be too many people, and Gushui would just die doing that, but instead we just opt to give up this space. Ultimately, this isn't, like, the worst thing he could have done. And it was obvious, like, the team was making a call to regroup, they're gonna touch. They were calling that. I think in the moment, though, that's a fine decision to make. It's just looking back on this, I think they absolutely could have capped, given the people that were available to touch. Feather now on... No, he's always been on the Reaper, never mind. Sorry. Looking forward. So again, it just seems like Diva Bomb was like a solo play almost. Diva Bomb was used. What's a good color for this map? Everything looks bad. Maybe black? Diva Bomb was used to go aggressive, sure. But what did we gain from it as a team from Spark? We still have the same space. And now we're also using Bongo for the same job that we just used Diva Bomb, to create space. If we're going to be Diva Bombing aggressively here, we should be pushing in off of it because they're going to be split. We should be taking different space on the map so we can anchor ourselves over here and force them onto the point. Not just sit around and watch it happen. Watch the fireworks show. Who is following up this Diva Bomb? This was literally just, hey, Orisa used shield. I'm going to throw a bomb. And Gushu was like, hey, we're using an ultimate. Let's try and push. Who is ready to use this? I guess Architect's ready to go aggressive with his Bongo. But this is not a team level play. Meanwhile, New York, they're just biding their time. They're saying, okay, yeah, use all the ultimates in the world. we will use our lamp and a new shield and a rally. We use Joan Echo, of course, too, just to make sure they can't push into that room. Now the ultimates are starting to wear off. The bongo's gone. The Diva Bomb was obviously gone. Architect was forced back to his team. Now we push back in with our bongo, with our Bob. And Feathers in. Even with most of that being Matrix, like that was like really good timing for Reaper to come into the fight because of how much was already committed from Spark, as we saw. Man. Like you saw how much pressure Yakfeng was under and he still didn't die. And realistically, like there's nothing else Spark can be shooting right now other than the Yakfeng. Like sure, Feather comes in now, but up until this point, like Yakfeng was the pivot point in which his team was like hiding behind. And then now that the fight's being opened up, now that they've used most of their resources, now we can start spreading out. It's not before this moment that we find our win condition. Spark was all the way back here. and New York was over here, and they say like, hey, let's use a bunch of stuff and let's start flanking and go get all the kills in the world. It's not going to work. It's not that simple. 60 seconds left. We got one fight left to make this work if you're Spark. Good stall under Bernard. Good. Helps Friday build his rally as well. And now, you've got no more ultimates left. We're swapping out to a Mercy because we're thinking, please, Architect, please carry us. Please find 3 kills before the fight begins. And granted, I get it. Again, I don't think Brig is necessary in either of these comps in this matchup of Orisa versus Orisa. I would like to see either Mercy or Lucio from both teams, to be quite honest. And I think being on attack, Spark could have swapped that a lot sooner. But yeah, it's... Oh, no, it's not for Architect. Sorry, it's for Shy, who's now on the Ashe. Because they're probably thinking this is, hey, Floor swapped Ashe. Why didn't I think of running Ashe instead of McCree? McCree doesn't make any sense at all. Architect trying to find something. All New York has to do is wait. Poke them out. They're either going to extend to a point that's going to initiate and engage, like this from New York, or they're going to get themselves picked by overextending, or New York's just going to build enough ultimates to engage on with that as well. And at this point, it was kind of a little bit of both. They built up their rally early, which was really good of them, and Spark was crossing to this point. They know Spark needs to touch the payload, so they can wait for that moment all day long. And they just capitalize on it. Friday, the raid boss, is running it down. This is the hardest I've seen New York engage, actually. So it's good to see that they are flexible enough to not over-aggress, but to be more aggressive than we saw previously, based on the matchup. Because before, when they were playing against a Winston comp, this really aggressive rotation would have been really dangerous, because people can come back and peel, people can trade your backlines, things like that. But over time, ult advantage, positional advantage, everything was in their favor, so they find the aggressive play. So good call from them. And a full hold on first point Dorado.
Initiating match.
All right, what's Spark going to do on defense? Are they going to do Orisa? Fast forward a bit.
Ready for
yeah, now they're on the Ashe Reaper. And now New York's on a Winston comp. No way. This is pretty funny, actually. I wonder if this is like, there's, I wonder, like, part of me thinks this is like a little bit of BM, because it's like not like intentional, like BMing, like, hey, we're gonna beat you on your own comp kind of thing. It's because like, hey, since they're running our stuff and we can tell they don't know how to run it, let's run something the way we know how to take the matchup and just like sort of flex on them, show our matchup knowledge, because they could just as easily play a mirror comp and still beat them, in my opinion. Or maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe they do think this comp is just better.
5, 4,
There's no way he plays Hammond, though. Okay, no, okay.
attack.
That was almost funny. If Yakfeng rolled out on Winston, that would have been funny. Again, I'd like to see, is Friday going to swap Mercy? Let's go! Yeah, they know the comp. They know how to play this, and they know the matchups. And yeah, they're going to pocket Flora. Maybe even Feather for some... Wait, no, they swap back onto Brig? I really like the Mercy. again, like, I'm not sure what Brig is really necessary for. Typically, you don't play Brig unless she's necessary. I guess you could say the same about Mercy as well. Like, you want some added survivability in Mercy. You don't want to dive target. You want to boost very specific damage windows, stuff like that. I would even rather see Lucio over Brig, though, is the thing. But I'm not on these teams. They probably know better than I do. I'm sure they have reasons for all of this. They're swapping DPS now as well. Now they're swapping onto McCree and Reaper. So now I think they're opting... So Ashe Echo makes a lot of sense because the added like range value and using defensive pressure and stuff like that. Or sorry, not Ashe Echo, Ashe Reaper. And they were initially playing Echo... Sorry, let me rethink. I'm losing my train of thought. So yeah, it was Ashe Echo. I was looking at the wrong team. So Ashe Echo makes sense because of the long ranges and stuff like that. But they probably don't want to take a long range matchup for what reason? Because if they swap onto the Mercy, they have the range advantage by pocketing Ashe and by also having Echo spam damage. They could even literally just hit 6 people versus 6 people and eventually win the range war. But it seems like they want more ways to break through chokes, obviously, because it is Dorado. So they swap onto McCree Reaper, which is going to be better at brawling, better in close range. Again, I don't think the McCree is really necessary. I would have liked to see Ashe Reaper, sure, and then just like leave Ashe further behind to follow up damage instead of be part of the brawl. But maybe they felt this has some success. But again, if it has some success, maybe Lucio would be better than Brig if we want to play more brawly and more 6-manny. All right. We know we can't push the payload. Oh, we're doubling back. That's smart. A little bit of a juke there from New York. They've secured some good space in here. This is like all they need to do for this push. For this set of cooldowns, they secured this rotation. I doubt we'll see them commit here. Oh, just kidding. Jonak built another 10-second ultimate. So he tries it, but Bob comes in to stop the payload. Again, very defensive use from Sparks, but they end up cleaning up the fight. So if Jonak doesn't die here, this is obviously better. But I don't even think this was needed to be this passive. Like something like this would have been better. But also just a clearer response to this engage. Why are we getting engaged on as if we're Spark and not prepping for this win condition more proactively? And why are we committing both Matrix and Bob to deal with this when we could have just used one of them? But obviously good play from Spark, respecting the Amp Matrix, coming back in with ultimates. That's exactly what they need to do in this type of composition, and they showed good use of their cooldowns to survive that engage. And that's one potential win condition down from New York for the next little while with Amp Matrix being used. Okay, Flora, why are you off on your own? Come back to the team now. We're actually rotating to the high ground now. Hitting them with the mix-up. And yeah, this is so funny. This is like I was talking about conditioning on Numbani earlier. Like, hey, now they're afraid of this counter rotation, so they can't hard commit up here, so now we take it for free. Big brain plays. Oof. Flora almost goes down. So now this is basically just a head-to-head matchup. It's going to come down to who gets the most value out of their cooldowns. Feather, again, I think he's using his TP to build some space here. This TP is not trying to get kills. They pull. Wait, where did the TP even go? I didn't even see. I thought he was TPing like near the taco stand or something. Let's go to his POV. Okay, it was on the taco stand. I just missed it. So it's pulled. The TP here. It gets bashed right away, but he's already raping. That was just good timing knowledge from IDK. There's like a few frames where you can hit the Reaper. But yeah, the intention here was to force Gushwei back. And what do you know? Now with Gushwei back, we set up our shield, and we sort of leapfrog our way forward. Now, instead of this line, we're holding this line. Slowly but surely. Oh, but Spark doing a good job of pressuring back with Shy's angle here to deny that space, because if they put up a shield too far forward, that opens up their backline to Shy's angle. So really nice back and forth from both teams. Hard committing now with the Baptiste Matrix again. This seems to be like one of their favorite tools for opening this fight. And paired with Flora's High Noon, obviously. Nice little combo. And again, the goal here wasn't to kill everyone with this window in High Noon. It was to get them off of this space. So now instead of holding this line where Spark's on this side, New York's on this side, we've gotten to a point where we're at this line, where New York has all of these angles and Spark's forced around the fountain. Feather's TP here, again, I imagine was just to create space, but didn't really do anything because it was already done by the Baptiste Matrix. Bob is very, very early. Architect, what are you doing? So we see the TP. Feather even shot at him. Then Architect goes aggressive here. Oh, he gets pulled and he gets stunned. Nice. Again, really nice synergy and fast on-the-fly decision-making from Spark. They don't even let him poke for a bit of damage if you're Architect. And now they have an advantage. They're willing to hard commit to this now that more ultimates come out. The rally comes out, countered by 3 ultimates on the side of Spark. But is it going to be enough? They're just running it down. A really aggressive bomb. I think in this instance, if we are using bomb defensively, we're already using rally and bongo. Spark probably thinks they can be aggressive here, but they don't have the position to do it. Shy. Were they planning on pushing into the choke? I mean, Shy just gets completely denied this whole time, which obviously is bad. And their other damage source, Architect, was dead, completely out of the fight. So because of that, it's very hard for Spark to aggress at all, even with these 3 ultimates being used. And then on top of that, committing to the Diva Bomb this aggressively, instead of where the fight was already breaking out, doesn't stall New York at all. And they're just going to win the map off this.
60 seconds remaining.
Yeah. Architect's back. Goodbye. Game 4.
Victory.
So, yeah, I mean, really well played. I mean, both teams played fairly well. I think the biggest difference we're seeing in these two styles is just, I mean, obviously Spark doesn't have as deep of a knowledge on this composition. New York, I at least saw good signs of life of the way. I think this composition, so one thing I'll get out of the way first, like I think the reason Spark looked a lot better on defense is just because this composition is inherently better on defense. It's better at holding sightlines, it's better at kiting and absorbing pressure, and then re-pushing and stuff like that. And when you're on attack, you need to open up with resources to create space. So it was very easy for Spark to play a very responsive game. It was when we saw them trying to make additional plays, when Shy's trying to make this angle, when Architect's trying to get some poke in, when Architect on Echo was trying to flank over here, these kind of things. When Spark was trying to make those individual plays, Excelsior was shutting them down as a team. It was never a case of like individual duels deciding these fights. It was a team versus 6 individuals. And in some metas, and if they were playing a mirror match in previous maps in the Winston Diva or Winston Zarya stuff, I think Spark would have won because they had the better individual players, and I think that composition lets individuals shine more. But this composition that's more slow and methodical from New York allows them to mark all these individuals one by one, like I said, like sort of playing whack-a-mole, hitting threats and shutting them down as they pop up, and then playing to more coordinated, deeper understanding win conditions with more coordinated rotations, slower play with shields, coordinating ultimate usage, building specific ultimates to win out a fight first with resource advantage, these kind of things. It's just stronger macro level play. And that seems to be what it came down to. I think also, looking back at it, I think the map pool, Nimbani and Dorado especially, favored New York's playstyle. I think Koth in general is a harder map type to play at a macro level because of how, I mean, the symmetry of Koth maps in general make it harder to predict. There's a lot more opportunities for rotations and counter rotations and things like that. But also in general, and in the maps we saw, the sightlines were not as abusable for an Orisa composition. It was easier to attain backline dives and stuff like that for Spark, and that's a lot of the win conditions we saw, from what I remember at least. But then we get to these more structured maps with more laid out, defined areas of play, and Excelsior just really dominated those lanes. And I mean, it was all 3 of these games were very decisive from New York, and that to me is just showing like how deep of an understanding they have of not only the comp they were playing, but of the different matchups for that composition. It's going to be really interesting to watch New York's game versus NA teams. They play Atlanta, right? Who is a pretty trademarked aggressive team. So, one, how the Orisa comps are going to match up, but also, two, how the Orisa comp is going to match up against the Winston, Diva, Lucio, Moira composition, which is very all-in. And even if New York finds good space to hold, they might not be able to hold the same types of space versus that composition. So Nimbani's second point, for example, just flying back to it, when they were holding it on defense, a position like this, the reason they're able to hold so far up with this composition against Spark's composition is because there's no speed, and because if they get dove here or here or here, they can always kite away. But if they get dove with a coalescing Moira, with Lucio speed, with Winston and Diva, and then with like Reaper flanking or all these things like following up, that becomes a lot less viable, and they need to start giving more space respectfully to start off fights, which means less pressure on the enemy Winston, which means deeper dives, and it's just like sort of snowballs from there. So they're going to need to be a lot more strict about their win conditions. They can't play as passively against NA teams, I don't think. But it will be super interesting to watch, so make sure you guys check out the games tonight on the Overwatch League YouTube. And yeah, see for yourself how the matchups are going to play out. But that's going to be all for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching my rundown of this match. It was interesting. It's not as different from NA as I thought it was going to be. Again, I haven't been paying too much attention to the APAC regions. I've been mainly watching the North American games. So it was fun to break this down and get an idea of what might be going through their heads. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy.